lots of thumbs up, and I'm presuming everybody can see my screen also. Okay, so I'm just going to go through everything that's sort of about NPSI. So not purple, shoot it. Pretty super excited. For those of you that have seen sort of presentations I've done before, it's kind of an amalgamation of those presentations. So let's, without further ado, let's get on that. So for those of you that know, so during the course of this presentation, I'm going to talk to you today about the concept of NPSI, not purple shoot it. What is not purple shoot it, its origins, and why, and how and where you can get involved. I'm going to aim for a Q&A. It's probably going to be a short Q&A between sections. There's actually 3 presentations back to back. So don't be shy about asking questions, but I will try and limit it to just relevant questions, if that makes sense. So a couple of caveats. So you may have seen some of this before. So if you've been to any of the presentations before, you will probably recognize it. But don't panic, there's some new stuff sort of throughout. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name's Keactes. I started playing EVE in around 2004. I went on a PvP training course run by Agni Unleashed, and I've basically been PvPer ever since. After Agni closed our doors in 2018, I set up FUN.inc as a place for small gangers, small gang PvPers. And sort of since then, things have kind of snowballed, and we set up NPSI.rocks, which is a public calendar for nearly 30 NPSI groups. We're actually up at now 35, I think it is, and public groups for kind of public content. We're the only EVE online partner group that specialises in NPSI, not purple shoot it. So in my spare time, I'm also the Alliance Lead for the Ancients. We're an NPSI Alliance, and I'm also a fleet sort of FC and streamer. I think it's fairly obvious or fairly safe to say I'm a long-term NPSI advocate, and I've FC'd hundreds of fleets. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than 1,000 by now, or best part 1,500, I reckon, at least. So you're all here to find out about what NPSI is. That's the crux of this kind of presentation, the first part of the presentation. So NPSI, or not purple shoot it, as I've alluded to, is publicly accessible PvP content set out to engage any target that you can find. So quite simply, it's fleeting up with the mentality of, if you're not against me, if you're not with me, you're against me. So broadly speaking, what does that actually mean? So in EVE, if you've been in a fleet, this means that anyone who is in your fleet, who by default appears as purple on your overview and your brackets, is a friend, and everything else is a valid target. So if they're not in fleet with you, they are a valid target. So NPSI itself, I think, is probably the most accessible and quite often the most rewarding PvP content available in EVE at the moment. I like to think of it as a content on demand. It's readily available, and I firmly believe that NPSI is becoming one of the most accessible forms of PvP to any EVE Online player. This is from new players right up to bitter vets, or anything in between, basically. So I've got a super quick video that will give you some real top level stuff about concepts of NPSI. So let's have a look. Should be able to hear my audio on this.
Imagine a world where you don't need alliances or coalitions. A world where you can dive straight into battle with no strings attached. Welcome to the universe of NPSI, not purple shoot it, where every fleet is a chance for glory, and every pilot is a potential comrade. At NPSI.rocks, we believe in the thrill of the fight. Our motto is quite simple: if you're not with us, you're against us. No alliances, no coalitions, just you, your ship, and your fleetmates, your grit and determination, and the next target on grid. NPSI.rocks is a calendar made by players, for players, putting freedom and fun first, and is your one-stop guide to public content on demand. The calendar is updated daily with fleets from all over New Eden. Whether it's a fast roam game, or a cloaky game, or a full-scale assault, you can just log in and get ready for battle. Welcome to the frontier of EVE Online, where NPSI is more than a strategy, it's a call to arms. Choose your destiny. Choose NPSI.rocks. Head to our website for more details on how you can get involved.
So hopefully you heard that and it and whatnot. So hopefully you kind of understand some of the real base concepts of what NPSI is from that video. Broadly speaking, hopefully you've got a sense about what it is, what NPSI is. So where did it come from? Now, depending on who you speak to, you're probably going to get a variety of stories as to the origins of NPSI. You're going to hear names such as RVB, Spectre Fleet, Bombers Bar. They're all going to be name dropped at various intervals, with a wide range of people for, sort of claiming, staking their claim to NPSI, for want of the right expression. However, I firmly believe that the concept of NPSI was founded way before any of these groups actually existed. And if I roll you back to about 2006, so nearly 20 years ago, actually, Aghanim Unleashed was a new corporation and a group of players who wanted to teach new players, very similar to how EPUNI kind of operate. And we did this via Aghanim Unleashed, and we did this through our PvP basic course and university. And it was off these classes that the basic concept was born. So Aghanim Unleashed at the time, we fleeted up with random people. And we gave them the basic skills to start PvP, and we went out and we killed stuff. We did a basic fortnightly roam, and pretty much just teamed up and worked together. So what Agony did at the time for EVE was set up an ideal. It was a concept. We X'd up exactly how we do nowadays in a channel, jumped into a naked clone for no strings attached PvP. You didn't need to join a corp. You didn't need to be in an alliance. You just needed to be in a channel at the right time, at the right place, or right place and time. And so all that said, regardless as to where it started, it's still here 20 odd years later. We're not going away. NPSI isn't going to go away. In fact, if you look at the uptick and growth in NPSI over the last few years, it's been an amazing thing to sort of see. So we've touched on what NPSI is, its origins, and we've chatted briefly about those and some of the history behind it. But I'm going to give you some context behind why people want to buy NPSI. So let's have a look. I'll just give you a second just to look at that. Hopefully you can see it on your screens. Some of you may recognize this image. So just have a look at it. It basically, it looks at the difference between most MMOs and EVE Online. And it sums up why some people would rather not join a corporation or alliance. So people who do NPSI, they fall into the category on the left. These are people that don't want fuss. They want content without barriers to accessibility. They basically want to shoot things. They want to shoot things with lasers. That's the contrast of it. And what NPSI does for EVE is it enables inclusion. So we run a new player for example, FUN.inc, we run a new player fleet every Wednesday, fortnightly, I believe it is. We've had new players join that were 3 hours old, obviously in game. But on an average, the newer players that we have, they're probably between sort of 1 and 3 months old. This is what's kind of key about NPSI. There's no barrier to entrance. There's no ESIs. There's no interviews. There's no blood tests. There's no urine samples and so on and so forth. It's just no BS. That's the contrast of it. It's inclusion of new pilots, and we embrace that potential and show off the game that we all love. That's what I see, or what I perceive to be the most important thing. And so what I've done with the next thing, some of you will recognize this, but I still think it's relevant. So what better way of answering why you should do NPSI than asking the NPSI community themselves to find out what motivates them to log in and join the fleet. So this is a quick video to have a quick look at. So just look here.
IFC NPSI fleets because it's pure PvP with no strings attached. There's no timers, Diplo, or politics. I can come up with whatever doctrines I like and go wherever I want. It's just my fleet and whoever we can find to shoot.
NPSI is a pure spirit of EVE. like-minded people from different backgrounds setting aside their different tickers to band together with the singular goal of blowing up spaceships.
After years of living in nullsec, I realised that I'm too time poor to maintain that level of commitment, but I still wanted to be able to have fights with no pressure or hassle, and also I like being able to fly stuff that doesn't necessarily bankrupt my character.
Hi, I'm Varian. For me, NPSI is all about the explosions, just having a good time blowing up ships with your buddies in fleet.
Hey, my name is Renro. I chose NPSI because there's content almost every hour of every day, a variety of doctrines, and no worries about blues, solve timers.
Doing quality PvP and often trying, new ship and fleets in complete freedom, without all that goes with being in an active core.
Hey, I'm Skopik from FUN.inc. For me, NPSI is all about the people, the community. No boring duties or commitments. I can just do what I like most, whenever I want.
I fly NPSI because it means I can go anywhere and shoot anything with no restrictions from a corp or an alliance.
Why I fly NPSI? I would say variety and freedom. You can choose the type of fleets you want to join: nullsec fights, stealth bomber fleets, CSS robbing, low-sec roaming, PvE fleets, wormhole diving, just to name a few. You're also not limited to any certain type of content or doctrine ship. There's no obligations, no alarm clocks, CTA fleets, no need to get peplinks, no mandatory structure bashing, etc. You can just go and join a fleet whenever you feel like it.
Okay, so hopefully you could see and hear that. So some of the main sort of takeaways I think you need to hopefully I'm sort of seeing from what I'm saying is that NPSI offers PvP content on demand. It's inclusive and it's open and accessible to all. It's visible. It's really, really simple to get involved. In effect, the bottom line is it allows you no strings attached PvP. And so like I alluded to earlier on, in recent years, the interest in NPSI and the growth in NPSI, I think, has been huge. It's been huge. Many of the larger groups often run multiple beats per day. Let's just have a look at something here. So this graph is actually, I mean, I laughed there, but this graph is actually about 6 months old. And at the time when I last did this presentation, I was a bit reluctant to include this slide. But I'm glad that I kind of did. And I'm glad that I'm included this time around. Because it shows you how active NPSI actually is. So what this graph is a graph showing my kills and losses from about 2007 up until about June 2025. Kills in green, losses in red, with moving averages in place. Now, my game time in the early years was, and I freely admit this, it was probably a touch excessive. As I was really, I still am, in all fairness. I was really, really gripped by Eve and the learning curve and getting to know people and so on and so forth. And I probably played a little bit too much at the start and possibly logged in maybe for quite a few hours, maybe 4 times a week. So it was quite a lot. You can probably see that there is a trend from 2008. So I don't know whether you can see my cursor, but from sort of the first bar chart on the left-hand side until sort of 2012 with an increase in kills and also deaths. So, and then from sort of 2012, a slight attrition in both deaths and kills until around about sort of 2017. I think it's fairly sort of clear. Now, I believe at that particular point in time, that was kind of the natural evolution of Agony Unleashed at the time. It mirrors your kind of birth, growth, maturity, decline, and death, which you see in sort of living organisms, for want of expression. Basically, people in the corporation, they grew up, they met their partners, they settled down, they had kids, and their gaming time then drops off. Fairly evident. I think it's fairly clear to sort of see that. Now, this was until about 2020, as you can sort of see. We all know, obviously, what happened in 2020. Obviously, COVID. And pretty sure everyone's gaming time spiraled because you're all stuck at home, not much to do, not able to go out, so on and so forth because of COVID. However, you would also be wrong slightly. I actually set up FUN.inc in 2018, and I wanted to set a consistent schedule for myself, and as such, I've got now quite a regimented gaming time. So I game twice a week, either Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Thursdays and Saturdays, and I've done so pretty much since 2015. My kind of real life precludes me from doing anything more, and it's kind of the healthiest balance that I've kind of managed to achieve to sort of game. So I started running NPSI fleets in 2018, and the volume of content and the volume of kills and the volume of fun in NPSI is clear. You can see it spikes massively. And the content that NPSI has afforded me since 2018 is like nothing else I've experienced before in EVE. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, this graph is 6 months old, and as of today, 2025 has been the most prolific year for me, and it's seen me get more than 3,500 kills. This is all because of NPSI. Like I said, I don't game in any other. I only have one character, and I only use one slot of my 3, if that makes sense. I've got trade alts and whatnot, but that's to buy stuff in Gita, that sort of stuff. But hopefully that kind of has demonstrated how much content there is actually out there with NPSI. Hopefully it does. So kind of this is the most important section, and what I perceive the most important section is about how you can get involved. In real terms, it's super simple. There are numerous ways to get involved. The easiest way, as I see it, is to get is to obviously log on to NPSI.rocks. It's an aggregated public calendar with many of the major groups all in one place. There's also our FUN.inc Discord server where all of the fleets are listed and where all of the fleet pings are sent out. If you join that server, you won't miss out. There will be something going on. Obviously, you can see the pings and so on and so forth come through. Now, in addition to this, you can join numerous NPSI Discords. You're going to see rage pings where high value targets have been tackled, and also ad hoc sort of short notice fleets, which may not hit the calendar. Obviously, if they're posted very short notice, they won't ever land there. There's also loads of in-game chat channels. I personally, I am totally biased when I say this. I personally think the best place to see like an aggregated full visibility version of that of all the fleets is NPSI.rocks. You see it all in one location. I've got a real quick slide here which gives you some of the functionality, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. As you can see, that's the homepage. It's got fleets happening that are on the day, and also details of the pings. There's also a calendar view showing the planned fleets for each day, and each host has an information page, their Discord, their comms, the XUp channel, and any other information. There's also an FC bio. Not all of these are completed. It's through choice. Some people have given me the information, some people haven't. You can catch some interesting information about those individual FCs on those pages. What type of fleets they run, about the types of fleets they run and what they do, whether it's null sec, low sec, high sec, whatever it might be. We've also something I think it is going to be absolutely amazing. You're hearing it hot off the press. I say hot off the press, it's been in work in progress for quite a while. We've got something that's going to be absolutely amazing landing in 2026. I can't wait for you guys to see it. I think it will blow your mind. I'm not going to tell you any more about it. You'll have to just wait and see. So fingers crossed. You'll get to see that soon. Maybe the next few days. So last few content slides are about how you can help NPSI. I have said this numerous times. I've said this I sometimes have said this previously on pings out and so on and so forth. In EVE, it's super easy to, it's very easy to become a passenger. And to get the most out of a game, you have to change your mindset. If 1% of players are content creators and 99% of players are followers, what's going to happen to the 99% when the 1% burn out? You're not going to have any content creators. And this is where the 99% become disheartened with the game and they stop playing. So it's kind of self-perpetuating. So the one you've got to support the 1%. So how you can do that is really very, very simple. It's all about you. You've got the power to take part. You have the power to support, and you've got the power to engage with the game. If you like the sound of NPSI, find something within NPSI that you enjoy. And when you start attending those NPSI rounds, support the FC and support the NPSI group that you're flying with. It's really simple. Just by providing that support, you will help them provide that content and continue that content moving forward. Really, really simply, logging in and Xing up for a fleet. There's nothing more disheartening for an FC, or it's nothing more disheartening in EVE is for an FC to log in for a fleet and not get people to attend. They're going to get disheartened. They've stepped out of their comfort zone to lead people into battle, and then nobody turns up or shows up. It's pretty soul destroying. I've been there at the start. I was running fleets for 1, 2, 3 people sort of thing, and people didn't turn up originally. And then I think as soon as I sort of got kind of a more of a routine in place, that's when people would set the time aside. I like to think if you take a support role, when you do log in and X up for a fleet, if you take a support role, try a skirmish position, try being a scout, flying interdict, to fly command destroyer, that sort of stuff. I guarantee you'll get way more out of doing it than when you just fly DPS. Flying DPS is fine. I'm not saying don't fly DPS. Because clearly we need DPS. But I guarantee that when you will start flying more kind of complex roles, you'll get way more out of it, and you'll get that desire to want to log in. Prove me wrong. A really important one, I think, is to support NPSI content creators. Head on to the fleets, have fun, support what they do. Without content creators and without fleets running, EVE is just pixels at the end of the day. And it's how do I put this? EVE is bland at its bland at best and dead at worst without content. So I'd say just support those people that are running fleets. But last by no means least, spread the word, tell people about NPSI, tell people about fleets, shout about good experiences, tell a friend, bring a friend, get active, get in fleet. And if we keep NPSI as vibrant as we can help us. You can help us get the content that you deserve. So the very, very last, and I always reluctantly put this in, you can also donate. SRP is something that people come to kind of innovate comms expect. It can't always sustain itself. I'm not going to say have like this big donation drive and yada, yada, yada. It doesn't work like that. There are some people that do donate periodically, but it does help. So I'm not going to crack on about that too much. So now I've included a really quick top level summary about how to be a good fleet member. And this kind of serves two purposes. It serves to support the FC, but it also serves to keep you engaged. And the reason why I say this is an engaged pilot is somebody who's focused. If they're focused, they concentrate and they're not distracted. I see it numerous times in fleet. Where's fleet? GPS ? Well, if I've got 25 people or 30 people or 40 people on grid with me, clearly there's something going wrong on your chair, if that makes sense. To be a good fleet member, you need to be all of these things. You need to be concentrating. You need to not be distracted. And it's not the responsibility of the FC to have to remind people what a destination is. I know there is obviously the need for that information to be posted and so on and so forth. But if 95% of the people are there and 5% aren't, I would challenge that the 5% haven't been paying attention. So I would say the most important things, if you follow these simple things, it will make you the most outstanding fleet member ever. Just take a role, take the weight off the FC and the support pilots, and support the content creators. Turn off all distractions. the FC wants you to listen and follow orders. It's simple. Be your own pilot. The FC can't fly your ship. You've got to do that. And don't backseat drive. All that's going to do is annoy the FC and other fleet members. And it's also pretty disrespectful to the FC. Just don't do it. It erodes the FC's confidence. And if you erode the FC's confidence, they're not going to FC. If you want a backseat on your own fleet, we have a calendar that you can by all means use. Most importantly, though, I think, is support your FCs, turn up to the fleets, get active, get involved, and support the content creators. Without FCs, EVE is pretty dull. I think there's a couple of QR codes there. You've got Discord channel, you've got the calendar. That pretty much wraps up the introduction. So if you have any questions, I've seen the chat's been moving a little bit. If you've got any questions, just let me know. Just type it into the channel and I can answer, hopefully. Yeah, always check your T's and C's with code of combat and so on and so forth. Rules of engagement, that's what you guys call it, isn't it? I think, Laura. ROE, that's it. I know that was just a real simple introduction to NPSI, really. I think that the majority of people are aware of NPSI, but I know there are some people that may not have heard of it yet, but hopefully that's right. Wayman, absolutely is a place for a new player. We run fortnightly new player roams. We've also got NSP, which is called the FUN.inc new player or newbie space program. That's it. Which we've got set up. If I don't know if somebody's got access to the link. There is a link out there with videos that we've got up and running on there. And that basically does like introductory kind of like, I don't want to say tutorials, but they are like a stripped down version, like 8 minutes long, 5 minutes, 8 minutes long sort of thing. Just introducing to different roles, what the roles are and whatever. So hopefully that answers your question, Wyman. How do you, Diablos has asked, how do you go about setting things up to FC as part of it? I have the roles to do it for uni. I want to push things. Let's see what a good step. Okay, so in terms of setting up to FC, that's probably I'm assuming you're talking Diablos. I'm assuming you're talking about FCing for EVE Uni. You would need to speak to command for EVE Uni about that, but I absolutely think FCing for NPSI. Okay, it varies from NPSI group to NPSI group. Like FUN.inc, we prefer our preference is to have FCs in corp. We have done some guest FC slots. The reason why I prefer the FCs in corp is just purely on the basis of I don't want people FCing, throwing the fleet under the bus and then exiting stage left, performing the fuck off, if that makes sense. I'd rather them actually have some kind of social interaction with us, and it's also a vested interest in the corporation, just purely on the basis of that. I know it kind of sounds a bit at odds with the kind of what's the word ethos of NPSI. I think it's fairly obvious why we do it. We also have an active community in terms of the corporation and whatnot. In fact, I see a couple. I think I've seen a couple on comms. So yeah, I'm not even going to try and say anything. Blops in. I saw that you applied to Spectre. Yeah, crack on. Good luck. Best luck with that. Just don't clash leads. Yeah, and as Laura said, you're welcome to post to the calendar via EVUni. It automatically integrates over. So if you are posting fleets, I think, Laurie, you are running NPSI fleets as well, aren't you, I believe?
We're not at the moment because the previous guy that was running them left, but Diablo's interested in starting up them again.
Yeah, just speak to Laura, ping me on Discord, and we'll get you set up on the calendar. It's a simple Google calendar, so all I need is an email address, and then you can just integrate through to the calendar. And just as long as you just put full details on the pings, so on and so forth, and just put full details. Put full details in the pings, and also turn up. Yes, that has happened before. People have posted fleets and not turned up themselves, which is a bit weird, really. But anyway, probably your stage fright. Yeah, and as Laura says, Destiny's down I think it's every fortnight, every 2-3 weeks, something like that. They do, as Laura said, PvP 101. And it's super nice actually because it's really chilled out. Anyone that's playing with me knows that I fly pretty quickly. And yeah, it's can be quite stressful. Give me both. Yeah, and as Mother said up above, most fleets have got alpha fits. And any FC that puts a barrier to entry, i.e., you must fly this ship or you cannot fly that ship. There's one of two reasons. Just being blunt now, they're an idiot, or they're just being stupid, basically. Flying a ship that harmonizes with the doctrine, I totally understand. You can always find something to harmonize with the doctrine that you're flying. It can be, for example, if it's a Raptor, we will find you a Condor, we'll find you an Atron, we'll find you something that you can fly. If you're a new player, I've had new players fly with us that are less than 3 hours old on a shrink wrap fleet, which, with the greatest respect, I think that was barely. I don't believe that they were that new, but the character was only a few hours old. My point is that it's about inclusivity. It's about getting people into fleet and going out and, what's the word? Having fun, basically. That's the counter-rest to it. See, there's a little bit of chatter, which is good. Good to see. I'm going to work on the premise that we're going to move on to the next section. So I'm just going to go forward just slightly. Okay, so I am going to kind of switch tack slightly. This is the second part of the presentation. During the course of this presentation, I'm going to run you through some of the fleet commands that you may well hear on an NPSI fleet. And not just NPSI fleet, any fleet. So you get the most out of your experience whilst being in fleet. So let's have a look. So this presentation is going to take the following format. I'm going to explain what the term means, why it matters, and your action in response to the command. Now, what it means, the what it means section should be fairly self-evident when we go through the slides. The why it matters section, however, is likely to be more involved. So listening to a fleet commander in EVE Online is absolutely crucial. This is because the FC has the bigger picture. They're not just telling people what to shoot, then managing fleet movement, target calling. They're managing intel from scouts, logistics, coordination, survival, maps. Maps are difficult, guys. You don't realize. People just say GPS question mark. Have a look at the maps and you'll understand for why. And obviously exit plans. So whilst you may see your ship and a few hostiles in grid, the SC will have to see the entire battlefield, its geography, and understanding the movement, and so on and so forth. So, newsflash, guys, listening is a key life skill. End of story. You will learn faster in life by listening. It will also help you anticipate calls before they're made, and it will also give you confidence to potentially strike out as an UFC yourself. So yeah, absolutely. Train listening to 3. Absolutely. Just take it to 5 as well, please. So listening to the FC matters. It gives you tactical clarity, and it makes coordination easier. It allows for fleet cohesion, and disobedience can cause chaos, separation, and ultimately death. Communications efficiency means clear, calm, faster reactions with less confusion, and a learning opportunity as you will improve your PvP skills more by listening and replicating. Now, good fleet mates make good fleets, and everyone benefits. Now, with regard to your action in response to the command, that's going to vary. It could be do nothing. It could be not engage something. It could be not take a gate, or it could be do something. And in some cases, it could be do multiple things. Now, before we move on slightly, there's one caveat before we sort of move on. This isn't a definitive list of orders that you're going to hear. This is a list of the likely common orders that I feel you will likely hear during the course of a fleet. Now, in EVE Online, as I mentioned sort of earlier, Xing up signals your intention to join a fleet. And in order to join the fleet, you must write an X in an appropriate channel. It could be an NPSI channel, it could be in a Corp channel, it could be in which Alliance channel, something like that. And you wait for the fleet invite. Sometimes the invite is immediate. Sometimes it might take a while. Now, this isn't because the FC is ignoring you. Trust me. The fleet commander will be getting organized, and they will be very busy forming the fleet. So just be patient. Don't spam the channel. I see it numerous times. You get half a dozen people Xing, and it's just like all that is doing is noise in that channel for that FC to kind of. And what you'll find is that FC is then thrown that person 6 invites when there could have been 5 other people they could have invited. That had there just been 1 X, job done. It would have been fine. So it sounds a bit mercenary, but in the event you missed, it could just be a mistake. Just X up again after a few minutes. And sorry to see mother, that's fair. So in the event that you missed, just X up again. Now, most NPSI communities use an in-game chat channel. A great list of these are on NPSI.rocks. And now to get into fleet, you need to make sure you're in the right place and that you're in the and that you X up at the right time, and that you're not in fleet already. Because if you're in fleet already, I can't invite you to that fleet. And all it does is it creates another X and then another X. And don't be Xing up as you're taking gates, because, and so on and so forth. In station, in the location, out of fleet, X up. Job done. Simples. Naked clones. For the most part, this means that you should be in a clone that is clear of any implants or training enhancement. You could interpret this in a number of ways. If naked clones are needed, it's likely that the FC is going to be flying aggressively, or you're not likely to be returning in your ship. Either way, make sure you check your clone before you undock and set it to a sensible home station, and that you're in an appropriate clone for PvP. Super, super important. I say it on every fleet that I run. But I hear at least one person, maybe in every 20 fleets, maybe something like, "Oh Christ, I was in my training clone." Don't be that person. Just make sure, check it. It's super, super simple. Set in desto, or set desto, set destination. It means exactly that. Set a destination to the location linked in fleet. To set a destination, right click on the link, which will appear in yellow in the fleet, and set destination to that location. If you're moving as a fleet, the FC will give you more instruction when you reach that destination. But for the meantime, that is where you should be heading to upon instruction. And it's really, really important to listen to the FC's commands with regard to destinations, as often what happens is multiple destinations may be called during the course of a roam. And it might change based on intel. It might change based on content. It might change on a standing fleet coming towards us. Now, it's essential that you listen, and you need to be heading in the correct direction, or you're going to become isolated. And in some instances, you might just end up going in totally the wrong direction. And in some instances, you might even be deaded. That's the cut thrust of that one, really. So just listen, set desto appropriately. Now, I kind of use this periodically, pretty much every fleet, in fact. Standing orders. It's a military term, and it's something you should do every time without the need for instruction. I should not have to say 5,000 times that you need to orbit the gate and hold cloak when you go through a gate. There are a number of reasons. Just assume it's that will be the case if that's what the FC says at the start, or just even just ask on comms, and that way the FC will be able to clarify and just say to the fleet, this is the expectation. When you land on a gate, you orbit 500, or when you land on a gate, you take that gate, or you jump on contact, so on and so forth. Now, there are a number of reasons for standing orders to exist, and principally this helps with fleet cohesion. And it prevents fleet members entering systems that have not yet been scouted, or where there are scouts hunting for targets. As somebody who's scouted a lot in the past, it's super, super important that you don't spook systems that are being scouted or hunting in. It's really important that basic standing orders are obeyed in order that we don't scare targets off, or if you don't, so you don't run into a gate camp and spook a gate camp, for example, or just die, basically. And I call them support pilots. They get calls various things otherwise, awesome, amazing, so whatnot. Support pilots are pilots in EVE Online. They bring specialized ships to a fleet and provide added value to the fleet commander. It could be something like interdictors, command destroyers, booshes, links ships, logistics ships, electronic attack frigates, combat probers, jahans, all these sorts of things. Support pilots can fly a very, very niche ship, in effect. They can also provide a niche role, long-range directional scanner, mid-range directional scanner, and short-range directional scanner, watching local for the FC. These are really, really important roles, as it allows the FC to focus on tactics and strategy and movement rather than hitting their directional scanner, watching local. These are really, really easy things to do that take the weight off the FC's shoulders and provide and allow them to do what they're there to do. Probably 90% of FCing is movement, getting to something. To getting to a fight, getting to content, getting to a gang, getting to a gate camp, so on and so forth. The other 5%, 10% is the FC calling targets, for example. Now, you can help that FC with the 90% or 95%. You don't have to step up and take a support role, but when you do, and when you're confident and experienced enough to do so, just push yourself a little bit. Step up, take one of those roles. What you'll find is they're super easy to do, but they're actually quite rewarding, and it just takes the pressure off the FC. Align. In effect, this means set your ship to moving in the direction, in the vector of a location, but not warping. It's really important to be aligned when the FC says so. So in case threat arrives on grid, like a fleet, for example, with interdictors, we had it last night, for example, if everybody's aligned, and if that threat changes on grid and the FC needs to warp you immediately, if you're all aligned, you will all warp. If you're not aligned, you will not warp with the fleet, and you'll be left behind, which could mean that target, that threat on grid will tackle you. So when the FC says align, you've got a number of, just basically do it when the FC says align, but you've got a number of options that you can do to do this. Right click context menu in space, or even simply just double click in the direction that you want it to head. Your C click, I think it is, or whatever your camera rotation will allow you to just double click kind of in space toward that direction to align. Alignment is really it's a beautiful thing when it's done correctly. When it's not done correctly, it's an absolute it looks, well, for one, it looks horrendous. For two, you'll just get loads of people lost, stuck, caught, tackled, dead, basically. That's the contrast to that. The warping fleet is exactly that. The FC will initiate warp to the whole fleet so that you land together. There are two types of fleet warp. Cold warp, where the FC warps the fleet without you first aligning. So you're still in your gate cloak, and you'll land at your destination at varying times. You'll dribble in, ping, ping, ping in, sort of thing. And then there's an aligned warp. An aligned warp means you all arrive together, which is great for when you take on engagement. There's nothing more satisfying than a fleet all landing at the same time and having the ability to spread tackle onto multiple targets at the same time, so the FC can then call the targets, kill them all. If you all arrive in dribs and drabs, one person arrives, then another person, then another, half the fleet will warp out before you've even landed, and it's super frustrating for the FC because it's just targets just disappearing, literally like water trickling through the hand. Jump on contact, jump on contact is fairly self-explanatory. If you land on a gate to enter the next system, just jump as soon as you land. Jump contact is an extended version of this as jump, which means when you land on the gate, activate the gate as soon as you land and jump. It's really important that you do this immediately, or you'll likely get left behind in the next system or the next few systems. Jumping on contact allows fleets to move very, very quickly through regions and traverse New Eden within a blink of an eye. And it's essential that fleet members try to move as quickly as possible when you're trying to head best speed, for example, which is another term which is not covered, but it follows the same principle. In effect, you land on a gate, you jump on contact, line to the next gate, and then you're moving as quickly as you can. Kind of alluded to this earlier slightly. Hold gate means to stop on the gate, do not activate the gate. Now, depending on the FC, this could mean do not orbit. You will land in a cluster, and it could be that the FC wants to boosh the fleet off. It could mean that it could mean orbit the gate. It depends on the FC's. Standing orders for me are hold gate, orbit 500. That means you're within a gate activation range, but it also means everybody is not clustered up. If you're clustered up in ships, you are a sitting target for bombers, you are a sitting target for smart bombing battleships, you're a sitting target for numerous things. Personally, I prefer the orbit 500 because it means you are slightly spread out. I realise you're still close to everybody, but it makes you less focused in terms of your, I'm going to say your geography around the gate, but you know what I mean, your orientation around the gate. Either way, it's essential that command is acted upon in order that any threat or target on the far side of the gate is not spooked, so that you don't take the gate and enter the system and scare a target off. Whole cloak, it kind of follows on from the previous. Once you've jumped to gate, once you've been told to jump the gate, and yes, I did say the jump word a few times there, stay closed. You've got a 60-second session timer. You're invulnerable. It buys the FC some time to analyze what's on grid, what's on scan. If there's a gate camp there, for example, it's really important that cloaks are held. If one ship decloaks, often people follow suit, and you almost sort of see this, one person decloaks, FC's I'm decloaked, the next person decloaks, and it's like a fail cascade sort of thing. So just listen to the command, it allows some time for the FC to process the situation, analyze options, and work out the next move. We had it last night where we were actually sandwiched between two fleets. One was like 20 dictators, and one was a battleship heavy gang with a few dictators, I think a hick as well. It was the right thing to crash gate and go and see what was far side, and then it was the right thing to go, I'm not going to try and burn out that, because that's destroyer hulls set up to kill frigates with 30 bubbles on us. Not going through that. No one's getting out alive in that. So crash back, burn back through to this system that had one dictator, and stuff that could that we could burn out relatively easy for. I think we may have only lost one, maybe two people in that engagement. It was a combination of things. It was just how do I say it? Shitty timing. That's what I'm going to chalk it up as. Now, I sometimes use this tactic, and it's to hold cloak and trick chasing the enemy fleet into thinking that we've already warped out. Because they think, right, they're moving super quickly. If you get a 60 AU warp, 70 AU warp with a scout that hasn't had his D-scan primed, they already warp out to the next gate and take the fleet with them. So it's really important that if you hold cloak, that you hold cloak, basically. Quite often, if you don't listen to this, it can cause a cascade. It causes the remainder of the fleet to begin decloaking because they begin to doubt what they've not heard, even though they haven't heard anything. So I use this a lot, burn back to gate. It means activate your MWD, your prop mod, afterburner, whatever it might be you've got fitted. Approach the gate as fast as you can. Overheat it if you can. Just get back to gate as soon as you can. Once you're at gate, control space so you're within activation range. Don't bounce off the gate. That's the most important thing. If you burn back to gate and smack into that gate so hard you end up 10k off it, I've seen that happen. You're not going to be within gate activation and you will die. I can tell you that for free. This will allow you to activate the gate if you need to, and make sure that you don't burn your prop mod off. You don't burn out your prop mod. By burning back to gate, it allows you to potentially take the gate again, but also allows you to get to 0 at the gate to maximize your chance of tackling any ship that may be coming through. When you spawn in Eve, gate mechanics in Eve, when you take a gate and decloak, you land, I think it's 12 kilometers off gate. So you are potentially going to be 24 kilometers off at maximum off a target that's coming through a non-regional gate, I believe it is. So therefore, if you burn back to gate, you're only ever going to be a maximum of 12k off that target if they come through. And that's assuming no overheats and so on and so forth. So I know obviously regional gates are slightly different, but that's the simplest way of looking at it, I think. In effect, you can be within a long warp disruptor length point range of almost anything that's going to be coming through. So Starburst, I say this sort of periodically. Effectively, this means just burn in any random direction away from your current location. If you come from a gate, burn away from. If you come through a gate, burn away from the gate in the fastest possible way. To do so, in effect, overheat your prop mod, pull as much rain as you possibly can, and then look to align to a celestial planet, structure, whatever it might be, in case the FC decides that you should walk away. Starbursting, it's an incredibly effective way of making things almost impossible for one ship to be primaried, as every ship is moving in random directions. If you do it in a controlled manner, i.e., if I was to say, right, every whole cloak, we're going to starburst after 5, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, starburst. Everybody just turns on their prop mods. You've got an overview that just all of a sudden fills up with 30 people, or 40 people, or 50 people. There is no obvious primary for that fleet and for that FC, because everybody has decloaked at the same time. If somebody decides to decloak on their own initiative, brackets stupidity, they will be primary. They will die first. That means that we can take the gate, go through the gate, and they will be left. What's the difference between scatter? It's pretty much the same. It's just the terminology I use, starburst. What does scatter mean? It's similar sort of thing. But it's really important that if you do starburst, that you don't burn out your prop mod. If you do burn out your prop mod, you will then potentially need to refit it. You're using mobile depot. You're potentially going to get caught. You potentially get a long point on you, obviously webbed, that sort of stuff. Any ship without a prop mod or any burnt prop mod, you're sitting duck basically. So next one is spread points. Now, when in fleet, you'll often hear the term spread point, spread tackle, something like that. Now, this effectively means exactly that. It means spreading your tackle through the grid to ensure that all the targets are locked down. Effectively, this means putting a warp disruptor or a scram on something that is not tackled. Yeah? It could be that there are 10 targets on grid, for example. Once you hear one target called and tackled, tackle a second ship. Once the second one is tackled, tackle the third ship. So if, for argument's sake, XYZ is pointed, The wisest thing to do is to put a tackle on person 1, 2, 3. Once 1, 2, 3 is pointed, somebody else should say 4, 5, 6 pointed. Then that way you've got 3 targets tackled. Once you've got those 3 targets tackled, you then kill them. This will allow the FC to kill all the targets that are on grid. Putting a point on something that was already pointed, for the most part, I acknowledge there are some ships that need multiple points, so on and so forth. But putting your a secondary point on something that does not need a secondary point is wasting a point. You might as well not brought that EWAR because it's not needed on that ship. And scroll it to the next one. Spreading tackle and verbalizing and calling that you have a target tackled is really important so that FC knows which targets to move to next and which targets are not going to be escaping, so that we can coordinate our guns and shoot a target and hit die. If we are shooting a target that is not tackled, it means that it could warp out in 1% structure, and that makes an FC very, very sad. The best thing to do is basically once you hear one thing tackled, go to another ship. Once you hear that tackled, go to the next one, and so on and so forth. Multiple points on the same thing is just it's useless in a way. Certain ships is not, I appreciate. But okay, so warp at ranges. I use this a lot for what's the word? For when we see a target warp to something. Now it could be that you've come through a gate and a target warps out just as you decloak. But you get like an alignment to where they've warped to. They warp off to a planet, a structure to get away from us. If the FC says warp to a planet ranges, select that planet and warp at a specific range and vocalize it on comms. You can warp between 0 and 100, and there's various ranges in between. So if you hear somebody say 0, just say Keactes warping at 50. If somebody else say, if you hear 0 then 50, take 100. If you hear somebody say 70, don't then say 70. I appreciate you might have already initiated warp, just don't even bother saying it. In effect, it means that if we have a target that's landed at that location, we've got a variety of ranges covered within that grid that allows for that ship to be tackled. And once tackled, we can then kill it. So, in effect, if you hear one person say a distance, choose another distance until such time that we have every distance covered. Now, if you warp at 0, warping at 0 will mean at most you will be 100 kilometers away from a target. Warping at 50 means that you are 50 kilometers either in front or behind. If you get a greater coverage of warp-ins, it's really important that you vocalize it. A good coverage would be 0, 50 and 100. This way, if you've got a target that lands at, say, 70, for example, you're only going to be 30 kilometers away or 20 kilometers away. If you've got 50 to 70, 100 to 70, and so on and so forth. It's only a very, very short distance, and an overheated point, you'll get it tackled. So it really is a case of listening, reacting, and vocalizing. It's 3 really, really, I mean, you could almost argue that they're almost like life skills. This one's probably fairly obvious, broadcasting for reps. In EVE Online, broadcasting for reps means requesting assistance from Logi pilots, typically when you're taking damage or about to take damage. It's done using broadcast buttons in-game, which sends a message to a Logi pilot indicating that you need help. And effective broadcasting involves doing it early, before your ship is kind of in a position where you're in the pod, and being clear about your needs for broadcast for Logi, and also not spamming broadcast. Yeah, as Diablo said, don't shout, I'm being shot. Unless you're in a team athlete, one in Logi, and then that case is, that'd be the case. But broadcasting for reps is a way to quickly alert Logi pilots who specialize in repairing and repping other people's ships that you need their help. It's crucial for surviving in large-scale battles or when facing unexpected damage. If you're the FC, for example, quite often Logi pilots have me on top of their watch list, so they'll see me, for example. But if you are in a non-critical role, like just pure DPS role, so on and so forth, just use the broadcast context menu. Use your broadcast. It's really, really important. Otherwise, why bring Logi if you're not going to broadcast for reps? You're then assuming the responsibility of broadcasting on the Logi pilot. I know Logi pilots are awesome and they're amazing at doing it, but take the stress off them. Take the pilot. So check. This means quieten down. The FC or other pilots is about to say something. So this could be, say, like a skirmisher saying, check. Recon in XYZ system, 100 local, all battleship compound grid or something like that. If you've got critical information about something, a situation that the FC might need to know, just ask for a break in comms. And what that means is literally just every pipe down, just quieten down, and then they have the opportunity to then get the recon over. You say this once and then wait for the FC to acknowledge, and then you can share the information you have. So if somebody says break, I would say something like, okay, go recon, or go, or something like that. In effect, I would, it would be somebody say break, Captain XYZ, 20-man Caracal fleet with Logi support, fast tackle, Dix is on your in-gate. That would warrant a break in comms. Use it sparingly. Not everybody wants to hear check every 5 minutes for like a frigate coming through a gate, for example. That would not require a check, for example. Point. The target's been tackled and the person is advising the FC they have a target tackled. The next action is going to be dictated by the fleet commander. And now this could be sort of an automatic reaction by the FC whereby he sets the destination to that location and warps to the fleet member if they're in that system. Either way, it's super important that when you hear point on XYZ, point on target, quieten down, listen to the FC and clear comms if the point is called. Every second counts on this. A dead skirmisher is of zero use to me. If the target's in system, we've got a skirmisher on grid, alone and potentially vulnerable with a hostile ship sort of shooting it. Every second counts. If the target's far away, the FC may need to set a destination. They may have to say best speed, jump on contact, warp next gate in each system in order that you can travel to get there as quick as you can. So point on target means basically pipe down, and there is going to be a ship deaded. Hopefully not a skirmisher. So X is in fleet. That means walk to the person upon entering that system. This could be a scout that's got a ship tackled. It could be somebody a ping or a perch to avoid a bubble. Either way, by right-clicking in their name in fleet and selecting warp to, you would land at that location and you would be able to act accordingly. So depending on the nature of the request and the nature of the person you're warping to, you want it, like if you're warping to a cloaked ship, for example, don't warp at 0, warp at 10 or any other range. Just use caution though. It could be that the situation might change when you're during your warp. The X is in effect, it means warp to that person. They should vocalize, if they're in a cloaky ship, for example. Anchor. Everybody hears about anchors. The anchor is a designated pilot that all other fleet members keep at range or approach. And having an anchor is really useful in fleets, as it allows the FC or the anchor to maneuver the fleet, for which coordination and proximity is kind of essential. It's used to keep the fleet together during a fight so that all ships are at the correct optimals and so that the FC can coordinate accordingly. If you right-click on the anchor and keep at range, that will allow the anchor to dictate your position on grid and navigate you whilst you focus on loading the correct damo and applying the correct damage and so on and so forth. If you are anchoring, and I'm not saying it's a good thing to do or a bad thing to do, either way, if you do anchor, it's really, really important that you listen to the FC on this. If you fall behind or if you don't activate your prop mod at the correct time, you're going to become isolated. You're going to get split from the fleet. You're going to fall out of the logistics range. You're going to be a sitting duck. And just because your 50 mates are sat on their anchor and you're sat 50 kilometers away from them, selecting the wrong ammo and not pulsing your prop mod, you will get caught out. You're going to get primaried because you're isolated. That for me is the kind of stuff that I live and breathe on when I'm on grid. I'm looking for targets of opportunity, people that think, well, I've got my 50 mates over there, I'm all right. I'm in a Thera.rocks or whatever it might be, whatever the flavour of the month kind of doctrine chip is. We can easily walk down in Raptors, for example, and chomp through that in probably 20 seconds before he can even get the call out to get reps on, and before the SC. And let's face it, the SC ain't going to change their direction. That logi anchor is, or that anchor is not going to change direction for that one person that has basically done goofed. Let's face it. That's on them. That's definitely the old picnic problem in chair, not in computer. Super important, this one, primary. When a primary target is called, this means this is the target you should lock and instantly shoot. When a primary target is called, stay on that primary and do not deviate until it is dead. Actually, it's really, really important not to split damage. If you put all your DPS on the primary target, it will die. If you split DPS, 2 targets will not die. And 2 targets can kill ships within your fleet, which then means that you are then less combat effective. So stay on the primary, apply EWAR to something else. That's fine. Absolutely do that. That's broadly speaking, that goes back to what I said earlier about spreading points. Apply your guns to the primary. It's as simple as that. Split damage is not going to kill anything. So just stick on primary. Now, so depending on which FC you're fine with, often a primary target and a secondary target will be called. Now, as I've just alluded to, it's important that your damage type your damage application is focused on the primary target. A secondary target will be called, or might be called. That is for you to lock up so that when the primary dies, you can instantly start shooting the secondary target rather than having to lock it. Small ships lock quick, big ships don't. So if you're locking up a secondary target and it takes you 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds to lock up, you're going to be there all day. It ain't going to die. It's going to reduce the delay in application of damage to that target by locking up a secondary. You shouldn't shoot the secondary, though, until the primary has died. Now, totally hypothetical example, and it's totally fundamentally flawed in a lot of the calculations, but just humanly. If you think of this situation, you've got 10 ships doing 250 damage, and you've got a hostile ship that requires 10,000 damage to destroy it. Each volley equates to 2,500, which therefore effectively means 4 volleys to destroy that one ship. If you split that damage in half, i.e. effectively, you're doubling the time that it will take to destroy that ship as you are halving the incoming DPS. Now, this is assuming no reps and so on and so forth. Now, by halving the incoming DPS, you leave 2 ships on grid at the same time for longer, which means that you will likely suffer casualties, as they will apply damage to the fleet members. So in effect, you will die, you will become less combat effective, and you will probably not be able to win that fight. If you all stay on the primary, it means the primary target will die. If you then shift over to the secondary once the primary has died, you can then kill the secondary. Why spend a minute killing a ship with half the DPS? It makes no sense if you think about it. You could just spend 30 seconds killing the ship and then moving to the next one, killing that in 30 seconds, rather than killing 2 over 2.5 minutes. It's just so, yeah. Cool primary, stick on primary, cool secondary, go for secondary. Once secondary dies, go to tertiary. Don't get me started on tertiary. Disengage. This is very, 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 very important. As soon as you hear the comment disengage, just stop shooting. Drop all EWAR, turn off all aggressive modules. Disengage is the way for the FC to tell you, get your combat timers down, so that everyone's combat timer is give or take maybe 1 or 2 or 3 seconds out. Somebody that sticks on a primary, sticks on the target for an extra 10 or 20 or 30 seconds, yeah, because they think their DPS will whittle that shit down, They're not going to do it. And all it's doing is giving that person a combat timer, which means that we can't then move as a fleet. Yeah? Disengaging at the same time means that the FC will know whatever his combat timer is because it is the same as his combat timer or their combat timer. And it allows them to regroup, it allows them to reset, enables them to move together with no aggression. And more importantly, the same aggression timer as if this isn't run out. So it's really important if the FC calls disengage, don't get left behind because you have aggression. And you're going to get split from the fleet. A ship that is split from the fleet is isolated, and you're going to end up getting killed. As simple as that. So disengage, turn off everything, turn off guns, turn off your computer, just hide. That's a fairly obvious one, kind of like warp out. If you're in a battle and all of a sudden the grid changes drastically, or the fight becomes unachievable, or the FC, basically it deems that it's not viable, they will call you for everyone to warp out, disengage. You can use a combination of starbursting, overheating prop mods, lining out, walk to a safe. This could be a planet structure, so on and so forth. It's always good to bookmark some mid-safes along the way when you do warp out. And the reason being is that if you warp to a planet, you're going to land on that planet at 0 or at 100 or somewhere in between. Yeah. If people see you warp out to planet 1, or best other option is warping to the sun. That's always a really, really good one. Sun at 0 or sun at 100. 100 is always a very, very good place to warp out the sun. It's always safe there. Yeah. People will see that you've warped that direction. So drop some mid-safe. So the easiest way to do that is, for those who don't know, Control B, Enter. And then that will just drop you a mid-safe somewhere. You can name them as well. It's always nice to have mid-safes in systems. I know a lot of people that just do it as a matter of course as they're moving. Bookmark some mid-safe so you can warp away back to that location, get safe. You can then drop a variety of other safes in between. Overheat is a very, very important one. Never underestimate how overheat can kill a ship if you do it in a coordinated manner. When the FC says overheat, please just do it. Overheat. The FC is telling the fleet to overheat their weapons or modules for maximum damage in an attempt to break a target that is on that grid. 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 ships all overheating at the same time might mean that heavily tanked ship that is pulsing its armor rep or whatever will break under overheat. They just do it. When you hear the FC say it, do it to the point where your guns are not burnt out, though, because there's no point in burning out your guns. But do it when the FC says so. It's really, 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 really important. Everyone knows where the next couple of slides are going to go. Hold DPS means that you should turn off all of your guns and not shoot or apply drones to a target. This is going to be called on pods, most likely, or blingy kills, so that everybody can get on that kill mail. We're all here for PvP, let's face it. Everybody wants to get on kill mails. Denying other people kill mails is a bit of a dick move. So just when the FC says turn off your gun, turn off your gun. So please do it. It's really important you do this so you don't deny people getting on kill mails. We're all there to PvP. Let's face it. Drones in. I thought this was going to be EWAR only, but it's not. It's drones in. Drones in. If you've got logistic drones or damaged drones, when the FC calls drones in, recall your drones. If you're in a drone boat, for example, there is 0 point in getting cold warped off of a gate because a fleet has come through and you left your drones out. If you don't recall your drones at that point, there is a chance that the FC will warp you away and you're going to lose your drones. It happens so frequently. Just pull your drones. It's as simple as that. Drones in, and usually the FC will say it, and then it'll give you like 5-10 seconds, maybe even more. That doesn't mean, well, just because they haven't walked you off or they haven't walked you off, that you can't. Drones should be out again, repping whatever. Just don't do it. There's no point in losing your drones. The local spike, it's a subjective thing. If local all of a sudden it goes up by 10, 15, 20 people, something like that, it's totally and utterly reasonable to say local spike on comms. In this case, because the FC might not have seen it. Local spike can mean that there's a hostile fleet coming to attack us. And in some instances, it might mean that there's a hostile fleet coming to us to engage us. Don't be scared or shy of calling out local spike. If there is one person on dedicated local duty and they don't call it, don't be scared in saying local spike. If you notice it, as it could be really, really important strategically for the FC to know there might be a threat incoming. But please don't use it for one person coming to local, because that's not a local spike. Looking the way I see it, 10, 15, 20 people. At best, it could be frigates. At worst, it could be battleships, or even more worse. Even worse still, it could be flycatchers, something like that. Just vocalize it. If the person that's on dedicated duty doesn't say it, let's do it. Step up. Prop mods on. Like with like what I mentioned earlier on, when the FC calls you to put on your prop mod on, turn on your propulsion mod as a your MWD or your afterburner. This allows you to pull range from the current location. It could be a gate, it could be a structure, it could be a planet. Either way, you do not want to be left behind, as you will be isolated. A lot of this comes down to isolation. And if a fleet lands on you, you're going to be called primary and you're going to get tackled. So it's really, really important to put your prop mod on at the point that the FC says so that we all remain roughly together and not spread out. This could be used in combination with a number of other calls or other commands. So prop mods on burn up, prop mods on overheat, prop mods on burn down, for example. I use burn up, burn down. I know there's no up and down in space, but you know what I mean. But it could be used in a number of situations. Unsurprisingly, prop mods off is pretty much the opposite of that. If the fleet says prop mods off, the FC is sufficiently happy that you're out of danger or away from imminent danger. So turn off your prop mod at that point in time so you don't become isolated, like way ahead of the fleet, for example. It may also be that that the celestial or gate or destination the FC will be warping to is not going to be warpable with your prop mod on. So, for example, if I've warped you to a gate tack and you're at 300, turning your prop mod on in a Raptor for 20 seconds will put you in a position where you will not be able to warp to gate. So just align to the gate, prop mods off or no props, just align to gate. If you put your prop mod on, before you know it, you'll be at 20k for that gate and you won't be able to warp. Worst case scenario is you're at 125 and you have to burn backwards to 150 to enable your warp or burn 125 kilometers. Yeah, if you've got to burn that 125, all you're going to do is slow down the FC at that gate interface. So really important, prop mods off when the FC says so. Now, for those of you that were on the fleet last night, Dicta bubble up. This is to signify the FC wants that interdictor pilot to put a bubble up. Obviously, I don't imagine that flycatch fleet last night that their FC was saying Dicta bubble up because there was about 40 of them. So, in effect, the Dicta bubble up is an indicator that the FC wants you to deploy a mobile warp disruption probe from the interdictor, so that any ship that arrives will arrive at the edge or within that bubble, depending on when it's deployed, and they won't be able to warp out. So therefore, we'll be able to tackle it, destroy it, so on. So it's essential to listen for when the bubbles are deployed, in case you're caught behind, so that you don't get caught and die. I've seen it numerous times when people have got, for example, they've disengaged too late, and because they've disengaged too late, they've taken the gate 10 seconds later, which means that bubble is then deployed on their out gate before they can get a warp. Yeah, which means that they land at the edge of the bubble, which means that in the next system they get even more spread out. And all it means is so just listen for when the FC calls for bubbles, so you don't get caught out. It's nothing worse than getting caught in an FC's trap. Totally needlessly, just because you weren't listening. Defensive bubbles. I use these a lot. We would have, I think, I did a couple last night. In Eve. A defensive bubble is a warp disruption bubble. deployed not to trap enemies, but to protect your fleet or control the battlefield to prevent enemy ships warping directly to you. So I often use them if we're getting chased by a fleet. I will ask the interdictor to warp at 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, so that when we land on gate, we can take the gate through. But when the local spike hits after we've left, they will warp directly to the out gate and land in a bubble off gate, sort of 50, 60k. I tend not to do 100, because if they've got boost pilots, it means they can just boost straight forward onto gate. I tend to do it at sort of 50, 30, 70, something like that. It's a really powerful way to split up their tackle, to split up their support pilots that might be chasing after us. Saber pilots that are hyperspatial fit, that can walk very, very quickly, and they get ahead of their fleet, and you can kill them before they actually even land. The rest of the fleet land. We did a great one last night that I got quite excited about. Because when you do it nicely, when it happened, it's brilliant. It's so satisfying. It's only killing a flycatcher, so 80 mil, 100 mil, whatever, or Saber or Ares or whatever it might be. But it's super fun to do so, because what you've done is you've just totally gimped their doctrine potentially, because they're now without a support pilot, which is actually critical for their effective control of grid. So yeah, plenty of bubbles good. Catch bubbles. Catch bubble in Eve, it's strategically placed to catch ships that are warping to a location. It's a powerful tool for intercepting enemies before they reach their destination. A catch bubble is placed in line between a celestial object, it's like a gate, a station, a planet, and their warp location vector, so that any ship warping from there, from that object, gets pulled out of warp early, directly into that bubble, and cannot warp again until they escape. When a ship warps to a location, Eve calculates a straight line warp path. So if a bubble is within, I think it's 500 kilometers, 500 kilometers of that line, and between the origin and destination, the ship gets pulled into that bubble and kind of lands at the center of that bubble, depending on where you place the bubble, obviously. Often surrounded by hostiles. They can't warp out because they've landed in a bubble, and they're going to die. Catch bubbles and all manner of bubbles and so on and so forth, they are incredibly good and powerful tools. Now, drag bubbles is kind of something very similar, but slightly different. A drag bubble is a specialized warp destruction bubble that is used to pull ships past their intended destination, effectively dragging them away from their destination. A drag bubble is placed just behind the destination of a warp path, but still in line with it, in line with their warp vector. And it causes ships to overshoot their intended landing point and, in effect, get pulled into that bubble past their destination. Now, I'm not going to say which is best or which is worst. I think the next slide, it's really important that when you're in fleet, and the counter-thrust of this is, it's really important that when you're in fleet that you listen to when defensive drags and catches are called by the interdictor pilots, by dictor pilots, or the FC. Because failure to listen to them means that you're going to get caught in those traps. If you are in any doubt as to if a gobbler has been deployed, warp to a planet, warp to a structure on that grid, so that you don't get caught in that trap. Because if you warp at the same time as other people that have come into local as you will land in that bubble literally within 2.5 kilometers of them. You will get scrammed, you will get webbed, and you will die. I can tell you that totally for free. So just don't do it. Warp to a planet, warp to a structure, just warp to anywhere. Just don't warp to that vector. Now, kind of covered off about dictors and so on and so forth. Booshes or double booshes. A command destroyer or boosher can fit a micro jump field generator, which is a module unique to command destroyers. It can jump up to 25 players, sub-capital ships, 100 kilometers in the direction that ship is facing. Now, it's often used for repositioning fleets or scattering enemies. and it uses, you can actually use them together. You can use 2 command destroyers at the same time, and it allows for a relocation of a fleet 200 kilometers away. So, for example, you have a friendly fleet with 2 command destroyers and a shiny something or other. Say, shiny Legion lands at 200 kilometers away from you, and you've got 2 Booshes. A double Boosh would allow you to Boosh your fleet onto that Legion, or whatever I said it was. I can't remember. I think I said Legion, and allow you to tackle it and kill it, because you've coordinated between 2 Booshes to get to that location. Likewise, 100 kilometers away, you can use a single Boosh to get there. There are many, many tactics about Booshes and double Booshes and so on and so forth. We do have a Boosh class. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details on Booshes, but just wanted to allude to the fact what Boosh is. A Boosh allows you to move 100 kilometers. A double Boosh allows you to relocate 200. Amazing things. Blops, Black Ops battleships. It's a special sort of Tech 2 battleship, specialised in covert and smuggling operations, which can use covert ops portal generators for any ship capable of fitting a covert ops cloak device, thanks to its integrated jump drive. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Generally, if you see a Blops on grid, you probably want to either kill it if it's on its own, or get away from it because it will have lots of friends coming through. That's, I think, probably the fairest things to say about them. But just thought, you should know what Blops is. Batphone. I think probably this is fairly obvious. It's a metaphorical device which is a call to reinforcement. It's often used in the context of threatening to bring in friends or frenemies to escalate a quarrel, which in effect it could be, so for argument's sake, FUN.inc's out on her own and we tackle Revelation or something like that. With the fleet that we're out in, we're probably not going to be able to destroy it, but we can sure as damn hold it. We can hold that and call for pick up the Batphone. It might be call another NPSI group, it might be call somebody in Thera boys, minions, whatever it might be. It's a metaphorical phone to contact people to get basic killer target. It's working collaboratively using that phone. Defang. This is, I often use it. It's basically kill drones, destroy the enemy drones, fighters. If you're in a drone boat and you have no drones, you're just in a boat, probably without any paddles and going to die. If you don't have any drones in a drone boat or any ship that uses drones, Defang is a super, super effective way of getting them to lose their DPS, whittle them down, and just kill them, basically. D-scan. I kind of alluded to this earlier. Directional scanner, or the use of it to search for enemy ships or other points of interest around your position. Directional scanners are amazing, but just get used to using a D-scan. If you hear the word D-scan, just open your directional scanner and just start hitting it. See what you see, say what you see, say what ranges, so on and so forth. It's really, really just to advise you what a D-scan is. Links up, links down. You might hear this. Some FCs do call for links on, so on and so forth. Links are command bursts, and they're modules that provide various bonuses to allied ships in the area that improve things like armor, shields, ship speed, weapon performance. You might hear it sometimes. Generally, if we have links, I don't call for links up. I just the guys that we fly with, they just do it when we're about to get an engagement. But you might hear links up, links down in case, and that's what it means. These are all the lovely things: point, scram, web, damp, track, paint, Neut. These are all things. They're all calls on comms that you will hear at various times. Point means a warp disruptor is being applied. Scram means that a warp scrambler has been applied to the ship, and it's particularly important to shut down an MWD of a ship that uses kiting, so they're not able to burn away. Things like Omen navies, things like Orthruses, and it's really useful for an FC to know that a kiting ship has been warp scrambled, as it means that they're very, very vulnerable, because they can't turn on their prop mod. Web means a stasis web fire has been applied to a ship, which means they'll be slowed down. And if these are bonus webs from like a hyena, something like that, quite often that will be the next primary, because obviously lower velocity, higher web range and strength will make that a next natural primary, I should say. Tracks means tracking disruptors. Paint means target painters. Neut means energy neutralizers. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the different calls that you'll hear. These are the main ones that I think that you'll hear. And that's what they mean. Points, grounds, web, stamps, tracks, paint, neut. I've added this one, tack, perch. Quite often during a fleet, you'll hear a member of the fleet or support team say they're a tack or a perch. A tack is short for tactical. This is a location in space which can be warped to directly without getting caught in interdiction bubbles. And it's really, really useful to see what's going on at that location. So think of it as like a perch, like literally like a bird perch above a gate, above a, you don't get bird perches above gates, but you might get bird perches above rivers, for example. But that's basically what it is. Quite often, a tactical is a perch. It's called a perch because it is above the location similar to that of a bird perch, which are found in high positions with a view all around. And so that's what a tack and perch is. Do yourself a favour. Depending on where you live in terms of Eve and so on and so forth, bookmark the region you're living in. Get tacticals, get bookmarks off gates, structures, planets, whatever it might be. It makes life moving around nullsec super, super easy. Thera, it's a super, super special system in Eve that serves as a massive wormhole superhighway. You can basically hop into Thera from one side of New Eden and exit near your destination. It's not wormhole space, sorry. It's great for hunting though, and it's great for NPSI roams, and it's also great for getting back from Filament. So sometimes what we used to do in the past was you take a Filament from, say, Keactes, end up somewhere, and then literally just set destination back to Thera, and then just kill everything on the way back. I'm not going to talk about sort of Thera too much. Thera is, as Jackie said, Thera is really, really useful. But it's a whole class in itself. If you hear about Thera, you may want to drop onto the internet and go to escout.com, I think it is, and just bookmark that link. There's more details that can be found there about what Thera is, how it works, how to get around. But think of it as like a shortcut through space. You might be needing to go, say, 50 hops from A to C. But if you go via A to Thera, C, you might cut that 50 hop journey down to like 10 hops. It will save you time. It means you can go out and do some PvP instead and do something fun. Same as Pochven. It's a region of space created during the Trig invasion in 2020. Consists of, I believe it's 27 former Empire systems that were pulled into Triglavian control. And it formed a triangle shape called Pochven, or Pochven, something like that. I'm not going to talk about Pochven again. Similar to Thera, it's a whole thing in itself. It's a whole class in itself. If you hear Pochven in Thera, that's what it is. Pochven or Thera, I should say, in Fleet. That's what it is. Go and have a look at Dotlan. Dotlan has got maps of the regions in Eve. Pochven is quite unusual, and it's a triangle, basically. Filament. It's a single-use item that, when activated, transports your ship or your entire fleet to a specific destination. Filaments are used to teleport your fleet to random nullsec or lowsec areas. They're great for NPSI fleets. They're great for PvP roams, and they're a great addition to Eve, I think. And it allows you. They're a great addition to Eve, as it allows you to bypass the traditional method of moving around Eve. It saves you time, in effect. There's no guarantee there will be content when you get there. However, it does give you the opportunity to look for it. There are different types of filament. things like noise filaments will take you to a quiet part of nullsec. Signal filaments will take you to a busy part of nullsec. I've never got my head around noise being quiet and signal being null. I just think that's totally counterintuitive, and eventually you will definitely take the wrong filament to go somewhere and not get content. Or totally, if you do that, use it as a tactical thing to say, yes, I took us somewhere quiet, busy because I thought it would be quiet. Basically, FC done goofed. Now, this is a combination. Warp to ESS at ranges is similar to warping at ranges that I mentioned earlier. The ESS is a dead space installation that collects and dispenses shares of NPC bounties. Sometimes, if you want to take a bio, I will say to warp to the ESS at ranges. This is because you're not able to warp within the dead space complex. So, in effect, if you land at a dead space at the ESS, you could just turn it on your prop mod and just burn away from the beacon. Because it means that unless they're in a ship that's faster than you, they won't be able to get you tackled. So that's basically what that means. It allows other people within fleet to warp at ranges that haven't been covered. Also, if you see a target warp that direction. If a target lands at that ESS, we've got a variety of ranges covered. It's very, very similar to like warp ranges for warping to planet and so on and so forth. If you do catch a target at that location, at the ESS, people won't be able to warp to you. They will have to prop mod over to you. So just be very, very, very cautious. If you do tackle something, you're not going to be warpable. If you're at 300k and you've tackled something, people will not be able to warp directly to you, and you might die. Don't get scrammed either. Podex, as I kind of alluded to, when you're in a PvP fleet, you might die. Podex is pretty much this. It allows you to, in effect, pod express somebody. They're asking for you to shoot them so they can reship and come back to the fleet. Wait for the FC's agreement before doing so, because you're going to get an aggression time of killing that pod, even though they're friendly to you. You will get a 60-second aggression timer. Don't just shoot it without kind of agreeing. The FC will say usually, yes, kill XYZ. If they don't just assume. A shotgun. This means to load, once you've loaded grid in a system, warp to a random anomaly. This will generally be a combat anomaly in system, and similar to warping at ranges, once you hear one anomaly called, go to the next one until all of the anomalies are covered. Now, if you've got multiple people in fleet, and if you hear XYZ has gone at 0 to ABC, you could say XYZ has gone to ABC at 50. Similar to the warping ranges at ESSs and planets and so on and so forth. It just allows you for greater coverage of the different anomalies. In real terms, the term shotgun may well be used in conjunction with other calls such as point on XYZ at whatever location. X is in fleet. That means I have tackled a target. You can warp to me by clicking on the X's in fleet and then warping over. Now, because of the nature of shotgun, there might, or shotgunning, I should say, there might be multiple points called at the same time. So listen to the FC's orders as to who the correct warping is going to be. And quite often the FC will ask for support ships to head to a secondary target to support the person. So it might be location A has warped to, person 1 has warped to location A, person 2 has warped to location B. Person 1 might need support, person 2 might also need support. So it might be that you split the fleet, for example, but just listen to the FC because so it's exactly clear where you're meant to be going to. That's basically what shotgunning is. Think of it as exactly that. A shotgun has a cover of ranges, cover of locations. Best speed desto. I do use this quite a lot, to be fair. It means, I think a lot of people do, it basically means for the fleet to head to a destination and assume when you go through a gate, you walk to the next gate. And on every gate, you jump until you reach the final destination or until instructed otherwise. Best speed desto is generally called when there's a target that's tackled, or if the fleet is attempted to move through space very quickly. So it could be scout says point on XYZ in XYZ ABC location. The location gets dragged into fleet. The FC says right click that, set destination there, and it's 6 jumps. This means you head to his location or their location as soon as you can. So it's literally right click, set desto, and head best speed. So it's warp gate, click, jump, warp gate, click jump, warp gate, click jump, so on and so forth until you get there. Once you get to that location, you're fine. You just then need to right click on the scout or person who's got the tackle, right click them, and then warp to that location. Now, that's my list. There's a lot of slides in here. I totally appreciate it. There's a lot to take in. So hopefully that will provide bit view. Now, my last slide for this kind of portion is really a call out to you, you guys. If you are new to going on NPSI roams, try something new and be bold. This is in effect where you guys come in. You're in a perfect position to help me develop this list. So if over the next few weeks you decide, fuck it, I'm New Year's resolution, I'm going to get into more PvP and NPSI groups. If you go on your own and you think back, hang on a sec, that Keactes fella, he didn't say about this, and this, just DM me. If there's something that you feel that I've omitted from this list, let me know. There might be cookies involved if yours subsequently gets included. I think, yeah, so that's pretty much the second part. Again, there's QR codes for the Discord site and also calendar. Scan them, bookmark them, get involved, and hopefully see you in a fleet soon. So that's the end of the second section. Has anybody got any questions about that section or the first section that might come up? Silence is a good thing, or that, or you're all asleep. Yes, I do have fleet tomorrow. You shall come. I'll just give it a minute if there are any questions. I know it's a lot to take in, guys. I know that, and once you get in a fleet, once you get in an NPSI fleet, or any fleet, in fact, comms will become so clear, and you'll understand what's going on. There will be times that you don't know what's going on. If that does happen, just ask. Just ask. Be brave. Be bold. Just ask that question. There are no stupid questions. There are only stupid FCs that say that's a stupid question, because there are no stupid questions. So just always. Do you know what the great thing about people in EVE, and I think probably EVE Uni is a testament to this. People that play EVE love talking about EVE, and people that play EVE love telling other people about EVE and helping people about EVE. Anybody that says anything otherwise is wrong. Okay, so I think there's nobody typing away, so there doesn't appear to be any questions. So if anybody does have any questions, you can always DM me or just send me a message or whatnot. I'm happy to answer. So I'm going to move on to the final. I'm going to say the last section of the kind of triple presentation thing. And so this is, so during the course of this presentation, does anybody need a break before I move on? Because you've got another fair crack to go through. Okay, should we take, do people want to take 2 minutes? Yeah, I'll tell you what, take 2 minutes. I'll crack on at 2 minutes time. So 1700. Okay, so I reckon, yeah, probably 2-3 minutes. If you're AFK, just stay on comms. No, there's no joke. Let's assume that people aren't, and we're ready to go. So this is the kind of final section, and I'm going to talk to you about basically giving you some practical skills that will help you get the most out of the NPSI experience and most out of your NPSI experience. So let's have a look. See. So this is so top 20 tips to supercharge your NPSI experience. It's NPSI.rocks guide to how to be an awesome fleet member. So similar to the sort of previous presentations, during the course of this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about why and how you can supercharge your NPSI experience. So just before I go on, when I say supercharge, I'm talking about taking it from being an ordinary experience to, in inverted commas, an exceptional experience. This will mean maximizing your fun, improving your own personal performance, and it will help you stand out in a really good way and help you get more and help you to be more engaged with Eve. This will allow you to get more out of every moment you play the game. It will mean that you're less stressed. It means that your interaction is more impactful and you get maximum enjoyment. It's not just about playing the game. It's about owning the experience. Now, this list is not exhaustive. One thing that is 100% certain, it's a fairly comprehensive list of practical advice that is born from my own experience within NPSI and kind of NPSI advocacy and FC fleet commanding. I'm kind of hoping that this list will allow you to engage with the content more and allow you to take more enjoyment from NPSI and allows you to plan and make some simple preparation steps, preps, so you can get the maximum benefit out of it. So, kind of alluded to this earlier. Newsflash again, some of the following tips, although they're centered around internet spaceships, these are actually tips that could help you in your day-to-day real world life existence beyond spaceships. And yes, there is life outside spaceships. Apparently. Anyway, so first off, we're going to cover why you should supercharge your NPSI experience. So why supercharge it? Preparation is the key to enjoyment in life. It may sort of sound slightly sort of profound for internet spaceships. Preparation isn't about control. It's about freedom. When you're prepared, you're not frozen by uncertainty. You're not kind of scrambling around. You're free, you're ready to be present, and you're engaged, and you're open to whatever life throws at you. That's kind of where enjoyment actually comes from. It's like you go on holiday. You prep the location you're going to. You understand where the different sites are. You understand about where do you get your train ticket from. You understand about this. Do you see what I mean? So it's 100% the same for internet spaceships. So just think about this scenario. You're out soloing. You're out in an Imperial Navy slicer. You get that engagement you're dreaming of. Your heart's pumping. Your hands are shaking. You overheat your guns and your repper. You're ducking in. You're ducking in and out. You kill that destroyer fit out to kill you right under the nose of their bubblies. You're excited. There's that thrill of that fight, that sense of achievement, that elation. Then you realise that you've got no paste. So your guns are at 95% damage. Your prop mod is toast, and you're 90%, and your repper is absolutely smoking. You're a sitting duck. You've got no hope of running that bubble camp. 90% damage on your outgate, to get home safely. If you'd only just listened to me and made sure that you had all of your ship's consumables as per point 7 in the next top 20 tips for supercharging your NPSI experience. Totally hypothetical example. I've got to say, how many times have you been in a fleet where you see or read in the fleet, has anybody got any paste? Yes, I've got 150 of it because I brought it along with me. You will see this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times every fleet. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. So, on that note, preparation is key to enjoyment in life. I totally think it is. So, I've got a list here about why preparation is so important. Less stress means more joy. When you're unprepared, your brain shifts into survival mode. And when you're prepared, you relax. So I know what I'd rather be. When you're prepared, you focus on the doing and not the worrying. And that additional emotional bandwidth that you have to spend then lets you actually enjoy the moment and not fear it. So the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. Yeah. The effort and preparation you put into enduring calm, low-risk times will reduce the losses, pain, and/or failure you face when real challenges hit. Train hard, practice, and prepare when nothing else urgent is happening. Then, when the pressure is on during combat, in life, in a crisis, in real life, basically, you're going to perform better. You're going to suffer less, and you're more likely to succeed. And that is, I can't counter that. And so I'm going to move to the next one. Confidence grows from readiness. Knowing that you've practiced or planned or rehearsed, for want of an expression, it will boost your confidence. When you first learn how to drive a car, for example, you don't just get in a car and drive. You're taught how to, the how part, and you then practice that. You then take your driving test. You're provided you're ready, you're going to pass. It's at this point you're going to learn to drive, and your confidence will grow with time. Confidence will grow from readiness. That again, it's another given. Preparation amplifies spontaneity. Now, what I mean by this, it kind of seems a bit paradoxical, but prepared people handle the unexpected better. They can pivot, they can improvise, they can take that as a wild opportunity without it turning into a disaster, because they have thought of the different scenarios. They have thought about the what ifs. They have thought about what would I do if this happened? I don't want to say they've catastrophized to the nth degree, but they probably have, because they've prepared. I absolutely think this, and I stand by every available opportunity. You will learn more when you prep ahead of time. You're not spending all of your own mental bandwidth trying to catch up, because you're soaked in the experience, you're learning faster, and you're growing more. Don't see preparation as a chore. It's the hidden engine of freedom, confidence, and joy. Don't let it restrict you. It doesn't restrict you. It unlocks you, and preparation kind of might seem dull. Oh, I'm going to go and prepare for this, but it's actually something that will keep you from bleeding when it matters most, because you have prepared. You have got your right consumables. You have got the tools of your trade to do the work. So yeah, they're my kind of 5 reasons to kind of supercharge. So Eve is a pretty unforgiving sandbox. I think we all realise that. I think we all can acknowledge that. The best experiences only happen when you're ready for them. And this is why preparation, I think, is the fundamental or foundation of Eve. Eve doesn't wait. NPSI fleets form quickly for the most part. And if you're not in a doctrine ship or don't have the tools or aren't ready, you're going to get left behind. So by being prepared, it means you get into fleet and get into the fight. You're going to get left behind if you're still fitting modules, scrambling for modules, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it never fails to amaze me. Person joins fleet. What are fleet comms? Well, you're on our Discord. The fleet comms are listed on Discord. When you joined our Discord, you would have got a DM that has actually got a direction to the comms, for example. So there's no way that you can't not have failed to see that, because it's in 3 messages. So that's definitely a failure to prepare, and that's a failure to prepare on the individual. Prepared pilots survive longer, and they kill more. You don't need elite skills to be useful. You just need the right fit, the right ammo, and the right overview. The more prepared you are, the more you will contribute, and the more exciting the fights become. The longer the fights become, and the more you will survive. So make sure you have your consumables. Make sure you have a mobile depot. Bring some spare key modules. Then that way, if you do burn something out because you've had to burn through a bubble and so on and so forth, that's brilliant, because you have that survivability. You have that that you've had that tenacity to actually do the preparation, basically. I put this, less logistics equals more content. Now, what I mean by this, if you've got ship stage, if you've got bookmarks set up, if you've got the comm sorted, and if you've got the correct access to Discord, to Mumbles, and whatever it might be, you can jump into content at a moment's notice. Eve is at its best when you're doing. And I know this is like counterintuitive to the things I've just said. EV is at its best when you're doing, not planning to do, i.e. not talking about doing it. Let's face it, everyone wants to go out and PvP. If you are ready to PvP, you can PvP. If you're not ready to PvP, you can't PvP. You learn faster. This is another thing that I kind of alluded to previously. When you're prepared, your brain isn't overwhelmed with the basics. The mental space that you have lets you focus on fleet mechanics. It lets you focus on target calling. It lets you focus on scouting and other higher level skills. So all of these things kind of coupled together. Yes, you're in a sandbox, but preparation gives you the tools to shape that experience, not just watch it happen unfold in front of you, unknowing what's going on, not in a position to get to a target because you fitted an AED instead of an MWD, or if you're short range guns instead of long range guns, or, do you see what I mean? It's preparation gives you those tools to make that experience far better for you. Now, I've spoken about what I've just spoken about, how to supercharge. To supercharge your EVE Online NPSI experience, you're effectively looking to optimize everything possible that will lead you to more action, more impact, and more fun. That's what I perceive the three things. If you adopt these tips, you will have less downtime between fleets, less stress, and less confusion when you're fleeting up. So here's a step-by-step guide. How? Preparation and mindset. These are the five, six things, I think. And for the most part, the supercharge tips fall into the following categories and include physical preparation, personal mindset, tools and technology, in-fleet conduct and attitudes, combat strategy, and contribution and reputation. Now, I was going to try and subdivide these tips into different categories. I started doing it and then I totally backtracked. I found was that basically some of the tips fall into multiple categories. So I left it as is, but thought it noteworthy to identify that to supercharge your NPSI experience, there are a number of different areas that can be impacted. So let's have a look. Next up, when asked to, kind of alluded to this earlier. Join fleet when asked to. Fleet commander will be getting stuff organized. Most NPSI channels are on NPSI.rocks. And yeah, I kind of alluded to this earlier, so I'm not going to some of these may be repetition from the secondary area. Now, different groups use different comms. FUN.inc uses Mumble, for example, and some other groups use Discord. Every FC and often every group is different. So before you form up, check the respective NPSI groups, check the ping to understand what comms of it will be taking place. The majority of fleets, I think, use Discord. We use Mumble. Some use TeamSpeak. I think it will be safe to say if you use install Mumble and TeamSpeak and have Discord installed, you will have all of the NPSI groups covered pretty much. And it's really, really important that you do this early so that you don't, basically to avoid the FC from having to repeat himself or themselves a lot in the form up. If you missed a load of instructions, you are potentially going to have to ask those questions. Asking those questions then causes disruption, so on and so forth, and just delays, really. So install comms and get it tested. Added here, set push PTT, push to talk. It's absolutely essential in fleets to have push to talk set up. Don't open mic. Open mics pick up everything. Background noise, farting, burping, eating, so on and so forth. Music, pets, roommates, angry wives, angry husbands. Multiply that by 30 people. It's comms hell. Just set push to talk. It keeps comms clean, focused, clear. It will also mean that you hear the scouts, you hear the FCs, and people can reply and respond instantly rather than, did I mishear that? Because was that somebody talking about their dinner? Or was that their pizza delivery? Or, do you sort of see what I mean? It's, if your open mic floods the channel, you're going to drown out critical orders. mechanical keyboard as well. Click, 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 click. It's great for, fantastic you've got a mechanical keyboard. I really don't want to hear it because I want to hear the FC, or I want to hear the scout, or I want to hear the, do you see what I mean? It's setting a push to talk shows respect for your fleet mates. It shows that you care about your own personal comms discipline, which is something that every FC and sort of seasoned pilot values. It equates to better comms, better discipline, better fleet, and it protects. I'll be straight with you. It protects the fleet's performance and the FC's sanity, and in some instances, it will actually protect your own dignity. I'm not going to tell you about the story about a guy that went to take a shit whilst he had a headset on, but you can imagine what happened. But anyway. Never say the jump word. What I mean by this is fairly obvious. Moderate your language. Listen to the instructions and listen to the FC. Don't use the jump word when you're in fleet, unless you're the FC. There are lots of targets that will have been scared away because people have not listened, or somebody has said jump and they have taken a gate, or multiple people have taken a gate. And what happens is that multiple people will start hearing gate activations, and they think, did the FC say jump? Oh, I heard jump, so therefore I'm going to go. And what then ends up happening is that multi-billion ISK, Varga, or whatever it might be, Golem, whatever, that's doing a site that's AFK because he's had a phone call, and we're trying to probe down, runs away because he sees local go up, or he panics, and so on and so forth. Just don't do it. Every time someone in fleet that is not the FC says jump, I'm going to have to sacrifice a kitten. I know that you all like kittens, so don't do it. Basically, there will be a flurry of gate activations. So just try to not say the word. Restrict it to the FC piece. If you're a dog person, it was a dog. So battle comms. This kind of alluded to this earlier. Once the FC kind of finds your fight, respect the FC. Keep comms as clear as possible, so that they can effectively call targets. Having a third-party narrative about how they're scrammed and webbed and they're deep in structure, whilst I'm very, very sad for your situation. Just try and keep comms tight. It should be for strategic information. This means keep your own personal communication clear unless you have critical information. If you do have critical information, use break, use check. Use it sparingly though. It's very sad that you've got scrammed. It's very sad that you've got webbed and so on and so forth. Having that third party narrative, all it's going to do is talk over the FC. People aren't going to then hear what the critical commands are. So just respect the FC in that regard. And having a proper overview setting, this is a really super important thing. I believe EVUni have got it pretty much buttoned down in terms, I think you've got overviews available and so on and so forth. But it is really important that you have a decent overview in EVE Online for PvP and movement within New Eden. I'll be honest with you, the standard overview setting that is provided once you've installed the game is trash, basically. Yeah, there you go. That's just been linked by Keactes. The standard overview setting is pretty trash, to be fair. But definitely have a play around with it. Get a decent overview set up. It's one of the most essential components in EVE. And it will allow you the ability of seeing stuff in space. New ships. Make sure you add new ships, for example. It's a simple thing, but it's easy to overlook. Having tabs set up will greatly assist you in your mobility. It will greatly assist you in target locking. The game it's down to personal preference. I find. I look at some people's overviews and I think, holy hell, how do you manage with that? Some people look at mine and go, that is absolutely horrific. I know certainly, I think Protogus, would attest to the fact that we had a long discussion about the proclivities of how bad my overview was. And then I got shown somebody else's overview and I had to seek medical attention after seeing it because it was very, very different to mine. Out trust is it's down to personal preference, but have a proper overview set up that is for PvP and that is for movement. So I guess it wasn't yours I was meaning. Yours was one of the good ones. Clones, and make sure your fleet mate's clones are set to a sensible home station, and that you have an appropriate clone set in your head. I do say it on every fleet that I run, but please do just check it. I always link this one. This wasn't mine. It wasn't on one of my fleets, but don't be this guy, please. Just going to leave that there for a second, and just basically the contrast of it is don't ever undock in something that, like that. You don't want to be, that wasn't on one of my fleets, I hasten to add, thank God. That would have been S neutral. Certainly not. So standing orders, kind of alluded to this earlier, so I'm not going to talk about this too much, but it's in effect, it's having a set protocol when you land on a gate, what to do, or in any fleet, in fact, standing set of orders. So if you're moving in a fleet, for example, standing orders might be orbital 500 when you land on a gate, and when you go through, it's to hold your cloaks. These are very, very simple rules that mean you don't get left behind, or like jump into a fleet, like I sort of said earlier. Every FC and every fleet is different. So it might not be said, but you'll soon work out if you're not, what to do. If it isn't clear to you, just ask the FC or just type it in chat. What are the standing orders? As a standing orders hold? Is it orbit 500? Is it take the gate? Is it just rush to the, whatever it might be? Ask and you'll find out. So obey the FC. The FC or fleet commander is the overall content creator, and they're the person that is in charge. Ultimately, the buck stops with them. They decide where the fleet goes based on the intel, what ships or doctrine to bring, when to fight, when to disengage, and when to run away. Running away is a valid strategy. Don't ever have anyone say otherwise. It is totally viable. Because you will string out their tackle, you will string out their skirmishers, their dictators, so on and so forth. You kill support pilots. The SC is ultimately in charge, so listen to them. Listen to them attentively, then listen to their instruction, turn off all distractions, stay focused at all times. SCing isn't easy. Having people not listen to instructions, it makes fleet commanding more and more draining. Yeah. What you want to have, you want an FC fresh when you go into a battle. You can help that, or you can help that happen by staying focused and staying attentive and staying awake and being awesome. If you don't, what you will find and what you will notice is that the FC will be mentally drained even before they've got to a fight. Having an FC that is mentally drained before a fight is not a good FC to have. So there are certain things that you can do just by moderating your behavior, moderating, turning off that distraction, turning off the internet, not the internet, obviously, turning off YouTube, wherever it might be, and then just focusing on what the FC is saying. It will help that engagement. It will help that FC. It will help the fleet overall. It will improve your experience. Totally already spoken about this, but staying on primary. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm giving you the shoddy example. It's totally rubbish example, but it's totally viable. Stay on the primary. The FC is called the primary. Stay on the primary. Spread points to the secondary. If it means you have to load long range, if you've got a long point on that tackle, that's fine. But just don't split damage. Load the appropriate ammo, stay on the primary until told to do, not to do so, or until it's died, and then move to the secondary. I've put this, don't shoot randoms. It happens in every fleet. I can't take that gate, I've got an aggression timer. Well, why have you got an aggression timer? Because you were shooting a pod that's naked and it's worth 10,000 ISK. That's great, that's fantastic for you, that's fantastic for your kill board. I'm not going to hold up a fleet because you've opted to shoot a pod. It's just, that's totally on you. So own that. If you're going to do that, but do it on your watch, not on my watch. It's fairly obvious. There's a reason why an FC will not be shooting a target. So choose to not do something because it's the right thing to do. Yeah, respect the decision. If a pod comes through a gate and we're trying to get a golem that's at a site, if you choose to shoot that pod and we then jump, take the gate, walk to the golem, kill that golem, don't moan in fleet. It's happened. Yeah, I've had people moan recently because they've shot pods and they've then missed out on kills. They've missed out on kills because of their own choices. So don't shoot random targets unless told specifically to do so. EWAR only. This one, it's really, really important, but it's one of these ones that people get a bit trigger happy. When the FC calls EWAR only, this means that any module that does not do damage on the target. Yeah, bingo. So what I mean by that, it means a warp disruptor, a warp scrambler, stasis web of fire, target painters, missile guidance, Neuts, Nosses. In the fleets that I run, there is zero excuse for pods dying, and yet pods die on every fleet before being told to do so. It's a constant sort of source of frustration. I've tried to instill this variety of things, but to be honest, it just doesn't go in sometimes. And I think sometimes it's just people get a bit bloodthirsty, and let's face it, we're all bloodthirsty, but let's be honest. Why is your choice to shoot a pod more important than the choice of the fleet or the respect of the fleet? I think a lot of this comes down to respect, if I'm honest. But don't be the person that kills pods. I know who kills the pods because there's this magical site called Z-Kill, and I see every kill. Yeah, I know who does it. So don't be that person that kills pods. You're going to be seen by other people. You will get a reputation. But yeah, and it's always misdemeanor. So FCs know who tend to shoot pods first. So just don't be that person. Don't deny people content. That's the contrast of it. And that again, that's I've just kind of alluded from the previous one. So EWAR only, and don't shoot pods until told to do so. There've been occasions where I've seen pods disappear on overviews during fleet fights. If you're doing that, you're not shooting the primary. If you're not shooting the primary, I don't want you in fleet. A pod is not going to harm anyone. Yeah, the primary target will. The secondary target will. If you're shooting a pod and not the primary, you're disrespecting all of the fleet members and all your fleet mates. And also the FC. A pod poses no immediate threat and is not something for primary DPS until such time that other threats are neutralized. If we have a bubble up, that pod will not escape. The pod is in the bubble. Yeah, so we need to kill the primary. Once you kill the primary, you move to the secondary. Once the secondary dies, you move to the tertiary. The tertiary will become the primary. Once all three are dead, you then move on to the pod. Generally, I call it EWAR and XYZ pod. And then I'll say Dicta Boosh, call it please. Once they get a lock on it, they call it, they say Dicta on, Boosh on, and I'll say kill it. Then say EWAR on XYZ pod, the tertiary pod, secondary pod, wherever it might be. But it's in effect, if you're not shooting the primary, you're shooting pods, it means you're not actually being combat effective. You're reducing the impact that your ship will bring to that fight. Your 2,500 DPS, 250 DPS is being put onto a pod that poses no harm to us, no risk. Yeah. So it's basically just don't do it. Pods are for once all the ships are dead, not before. Now, use the right ship. The devil's in the detail. Basically, if you go to a fancy dress party, would you wear a fancy dress? No, you probably wouldn't. But if the doctrine is a kiting doctrine, what I mean by this is if the doctrine is for calling at speed and range with micro warp drives, fit for speed and range, the doctrine is brawling doctrine with short range guns, fit short range guns, and brawl. Yeah. So flying the right ship is one of the golden rules in EVE. It means that you're going to be flying the same ship and fit for the fleet commander potentially. You have the right modules, you have the right ammo, you have the right implants. If you and basically, if you're fit to match the fleet doctrine, not your personal preference. The reason why people fit like for like ship is so that you all stick together when you're pulsing your prop mods, when you are burning away from gates. If you fit an AB, an afterburner, instead of an MWD, you're going to get left behind. There's nothing the FC can do for that. That is totally on you. Yeah. Fleet doctrines themselves, they're carefully built around range, speed, tank, and damage. And fleeting is a team sport, and you're a cog in that machine. If you're misfit, the whole system suffers. It's not just you, because the FC will have to wait for you at gates. They will have to wait for you if you're warping at 5 AU. I don't know how many times I have to say about warp speed. For example, I say it every time, and yet we sometimes have to warp at 5 AU because somebody hasn't fit hyperspatials, even though I've been mentioned it 2, 3, 4, 5 times because they didn't have their comms installed, for example. Ultimately, this comes down to the respect. It goes back to what I said earlier. The right ship means respecting the doctrine. Flying the right ship means respecting the FC, and flying the right ship means respecting the fleet. It's not about showing off. It's not about you show up to the right tools to do the job effectively so you don't diminish the experience for others. Yeah? The right ship harmonizes, the wrong ship doesn't. Knowing your ship is super important. Know your speed, know its limitations. Before you start the fleet, before I start a fleet, usually, your FC should briefly talk about the fleet, about the doctrine. For the most part, I do this. It's fairly obvious now. They should explain its strengths, its weaknesses, and make sure that everybody knows and understands the base concept of the doctrine and its capabilities. Assume no pre-knowledge so that people understand 100% the expectations on them, what they should be doing at what time and why. Failure to do so will almost certainly get somebody killed. Now, this goes so far as to understand your optimal ranges, understanding your fall loss, understanding your ammo, what you should be shooting, understanding the risks of, going in close. In interceptors, for example, going in close means you could get smart bomb damage, you could get scrammed, you could get webbed. In addition, you need to know your base speed with your prop mods and without your prop mods, and also your overheat speed. It's great that you can get into that shiny ship. Yeah, you need to know how to fly it. And you will be severely hampered in your ability to fly if you don't understand what is meant, how to do, what is meant to do in it, basically. If you're in a kayak ship, know your speeds, know your optimals, know your ranges. If you get scrammed, you're dead, basically. Consumables. When you go on holiday, don't forget your toothbrush. Make sure you take everything with you. It's pretty simple. Your ammo, paste, scripts, anything else that you might require in your cargo hold before you set off. If you want to be a cool kid, take a mobile depot. Take some spare MWDs. Take something, that somebody might burn out. Take some spare cat boosters from Logi pilots. That kind of thing. That is added value for you, because it means that if you get caught out, burning out your prop mod because of some reason, you have the ability to swap out. But if you take along some cat boosters, it means when our Logi pilots have an awesome fight and they've used all of their cat boosters, it means you can top them up. It's brilliant for them, brilliant for the fleet, brilliant for everyone. Everybody has a great experience. Consumables, don't underestimate how important it is. Getting appropriate fits set up as well. So warp speed. I always check this, or always try to check this. I've included this this section because it links directly to doctrines and appropriateness of the ships that you're flying. If you've done all your fleet pre-flight checks and you find your warp speed is less than the fleet commander, you will hold up whole fleet. Your fleet warps at the lowest speed of the fleet members. So if you have an interceptor that's warping at 5 AU, for example, because it's not got hyperspatials fit, it will mean that the whole fleet will warp at 5 AU. It's not just that one person. So it's essential that you understand the expectation for warp speed in order that you harmonize with the fleet and you don't slow down the fleet and FC. That's not just personal preference. If you're in hyperspatial cruisers, for example, and you want to be warping at 7.5 AU or 8 AU or whatever it might be, if you can do that, you want to be able to move quickly. You don't necessarily want to be able to warp at 4, 3, or whatever. You want to be warping as fast as you can and every equalised across the board. It just means that you're all moving together rather than people getting left behind. Kind of spoken about spread tackle. Basically, once you hear one targeted, go to the next one. And once you hear the second target, go to the third. Spread tackle means literally putting all of your tackle modules across a variety of targets. So 1 point here, 1 point there, 1 point everywhere. And then that way you've got targets tackled, and then you kill them in order by primary, then secondary, then tertiary. Spreading tackle is really important. It means targets don't escape. If targets don't escape, it means you kill them. If they do escape, you don't kill them. Like panic, Mr. Mannering. One of the most important or powerful ways, I should say, to supercharge your experience is not to panic. Eve actually, in my eyes, it rewards calm, deliberate decision making. When things go wrong, and I know that they will, if you stay composed, it's like you hear what's the word? A bunch of chickens. It's one starts going buck, 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 the other one's buck, 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 like that. It's like that. Staying composed allows you to assess the situation, following fleet commands, and make smart choices under fire. Panic leads to mistakes, which will eventually result in a failed cascade of all of you. But if you train yourself to just take a deep breath, and this is like this is a real life thing. Take a deep breath, keep listening. You'll find that you will survive more, you will contribute more, and you will enjoy the game on a deeper level. Staying cool in chaos doesn't just help you, it keeps the fleet strong. And the good news is anyone can do it. Yeah, anyone can learn that skill. Start by accepting that you will lose ships in PvP. It's part of the game. Embrace that loss as content. And remember, a calm pilot is a deadly pilot, and a deadly pilot is a valuable pilot. Absolutely agree with that. You panic and never ending well, as was said. So I've put about volunteering for roles in Eve. I kind of alluded to this earlier. You become instantly more valuable. FCs love people that step up. Even if you're just, even if you're new, showing the initiative gets you noticed, and it will get you appreciated. Anybody can step up. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter, just if you step up, it brings you added value. It brings you as an added value to that fleet. You'll actually learn faster as well. You'll gain insights into fleet mechanics, grid positionings, tactics that you'll never get from just pressing F1 or just being DPS. It's way more fun and engaging. You're not just another ship in the blob. You've got purpose. You've got responsibility. The FC will lean on you when they can, every moment that you will be in fleet, that you have genuine impact. It will also, there's another, I'm not going to say more profound thing. It will actually build trust on you by the community. Volunteering shows you're serious and reliable, and over time you might be invited into different channels for more advanced ops. You might get invited to a skirmish channel for planning fleets and so on and so forth. It just will give you more ability, basically, more trust from the community. Some of the best roles to volunteer for include scouting and skirmishing. That's hunting, basically. Running interdictors, command destroyers, booshes, links, logistics. Really simple things like using your directional scanner and setting it at certain ranges can actually help in a way as well. So NPSI communities, you've probably realised this by now, NPSI communities are built on people who step up, and your next role could be a game changer for you and your own personal enjoyment in Eve. It could change this from being a game that you just turn up to fleets in, and it could change it to being, holy shit, that was an amazing, the way that this was coordinated, or the way that this was, organized, or the different stuff going on, the mechanics in the background, so on and so forth. It could totally change the game for you. So definitely volunteer as a man. I put this because it seems fairly obvious, but you'd be amazed how many people just totally and utterly randomly just go AFK, and then they come back and say, "I'm dead. Why am I dead?" Well, you're dead because you went for AFK and you weren't in a position to do so, and the commander might not have noticed that you weren't there, for example. They might have warped you, for example, and you've not then been taking the gate, and so on and so forth. So if you do go AFK, and I totally 100% understand this happened, flag yourself exempt, drop a mid safe, flag yourself exempt, and just walk to mid safe and just disconnect if you can, or just drop from fleet. Just so there is no chance that you can get walked to by a fleet member, or if you're in a cloaking ship, decloaked, or so on and so forth. If you do need to go, just let the FC know. There is a risk associated to that, I acknowledge, because of probers, so on and so forth. But I think personally, notify the FC, warp out, bookmark a random mid safe, flag yourself exempt, and then burn randomly. Once you're back, ask the fleet for the GPS. Don't holler on comms, because you've had, I know this will sound a bit ridiculous as well, because you've had to go emergency AFK, taking up fleet chatter because you've had to go away on a break because of some reason. Don't use up comms. Just ask in fleet chat. Then that way you can make your way back to get back to fleet. You can get back into fleet and then come back, rejoin the content. It sounds stupid. Don't go AFK when you're playing internet spaceships, but you'd be amazed at how many people do it. Loot considerately, I should say, not loot considerably. That was totally misread that. Now, inevitably, when ships are destroyed, there's going to be loot. Don't be the person that always gets the loot. Loot policy should really be stated at the start of a fleet, because it's a public fleet, and because it's made up of fleets from many different corps, so on and so forth. Looting needs to be sort of fair and sustainable. I'll be honest with you, I've given up even trying to loot on the fleets that I run. I never get any loot. Okay, we do get the blues and greens and shiny loot and so on and so forth, but I might get, one or two, maybe 2 or 3 contracts per fleet. It does not sustain the SRP. I can tell you that, because I do nothing with the loot, because I don't have the time to do it. Most NPSI groups request that the valuable loot be donated to help cover SRP for critical roles such as skirmishers, interdictors, command destroyers, and so on. Any salvage or trash loot is free for all, basically. Now, there are times when there are drops from big kills that might be divvied up. I think I had one fleet last year where we killed a lot of procurers that all had strip miners, something like that, and we split up. It was about 15 bills, something like that, between everybody that was in fleet. Generally, the FC will make that call, and they'll make a note of who was on those kills in order to pass a miss back. It doesn't always happen. I'll be straight with you on that. If you're out PvPing, don't expect at every available instance you will get somebody else to pay for the ships that have been lost. It just doesn't work like that. We're not one of the bigger NPSI groups that has multiple billions, and I mean hundreds of billions, given to them at available opportunities. I can tell you that for free. We're definitely not. It's pretty much sustainable on the basis of my own individual kind of ISK on it. But that's an aside. Basically, cut thrust of it is, best practice is ask before you loot, know what the loot policy is, and don't take it all. There are things such as loot logs on in ETH, so we know who takes the loot. Don't pretend it didn't happen either, because the logs will say so, which has happened before. So there's your do's and don'ts. I'm not going to go into that. One thing I would say, though, is if there's a fight going on, if I see somebody opening cans and looting, that's really not a good way to get a Christmas card from me. Only loot if we've finished fighting, I think is the fairest thing to say. If you loot during combat, that's just a big no-no. Well, and it has happened before. But staying positive. it's very, very important. Negativity is contagious. Staying positive in an NPSI is crucial. It's not just crucial for your own experience, but for other people. If you're down on a situation, this XYZ happened, this is bollocks, blah blah blah, it's erosive, it's divisive. It will, positivity helps new players thrive. Staying upbeat and supporting them makes newer pilots feel welcome, and it keeps them flying. We don't want to be chasing people away. We want people to come back. Fleet commanders rely on good vibes and lead fleets for free to use their own ISK and their time and so on and so forth to fly and kill stuff. If someone flames the FC, it ruins morale. If someone backseats the FC and says, "Well, I wouldn't have done that," we all died, blah, 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 so on and so forth. All it's going to do is erode their confidence. Staying positive lifts the group, and be a model fleet member. Do this, and it will set the tone for others. There are certain things, and this is kind of linked to what I was saying. There are certain things that you can do to actually elevate people. So compliment people who did something great. Say to the scouts, "That was amazing. How did you do that?" Say to Logic, Logic, that was amazing. You were on point in that row. Or that fight. How did you keep it all alive? If there is situations like that, just say it. Say what you see. Now, if there's a new pilot, for example, say to them how well they've kept up. That will mean the world to them. I move quickly. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that for free. I move super quickly. If there is a new player in fleet and they keep up with me, they have done amazingly, I think. I should probably acknowledge that more. I tried to in the past. I've probably diminished because I can't always follow who's new and who's not new and so on and so forth. I do ask who's new at the start, but not everybody sort of is honest because they get scared of picking an X in fleet because it's nice. They're I think they're gonna get flamed. We're not gonna flame you. You're a new pilot, so what? We're all there. It's super important. Acknowledging and staying positive. It's really, really. It's such an awesome way to actually elevate people's experience. Last point on this is thank the FCs. And I don't want to. I know people do thank me, but thank the scouts and thank the Logi after a fleet. I know it's appreciated. I genuinely, from my perspective, I know when people thank me, it's great. It's really quite a sweet way of getting the end of a nice ride. And this kind of leads on nicely. It's veteran SCs get high numbers because they are older than twos, and they get in inverted commas a reputation for being maybe good or whatnot. Newer SCs get lower numbers, and it's a real shame because ironically enough, it should be the opposite way around, because someone starting out needs support. Someone who's already established does not need support. I see it in other groups. I see it in a new FC steps up, takes a fleet out, doesn't get the numbers. An old FC steps up, takes fleet out. You haven't seen for 6 months, they get 100 in fleet. It's totally counterintuitive. The person you actually need to support is the person that you need to help them grow. You need to help them develop and support them. They're not going to get the support they need if they have a smaller fleet and less numbers, less support pilots, and so on and so forth. I counter anybody here to disagree with me on this. FCs and fleet commanders and content creators and so on and so forth, they're the life of this game. Without them, we don't really have a game. We just got spaceships. New FCs will never become veteran FCs if you don't turn up. As I kind of said earlier, there's nothing more frustrating for an FC than low numbers, especially for a new FC if they're just learning. So strike out when you can and support those FCs because it will mean that they will continue. Watchlists. I always set watchlists before we go. Sort watchlist, color code accordingly. Have scouts, probers, reppers, booshes, logi, whatnot. It's different. I flag them as different colors. make sure you know who the primary scout is or who your scouts are, and that everyone has them on the watch list. I set a message of the day every fleet, and so I make sure that I have all of the people that are on critical roles, you know, so that you can get them added sort of more easily, and people know who they are. If you do run fleets or do opt to run fleets, just do that every fleet. Internalize your dying moments. I know I've kind of mentioned this earlier, but if you're going to die, can you die quietly, please? The reason why I say this is because we don't need a blow-by-blow account of your untimely death, because it's probably because you did something or didn't do something. So if you are going to do that, can you just do it, internalize it? Whilst it's very, very sad that you're dying, it might not be mission critical. And I think this is... die quietly, basically. If you PvP long enough, you are going to die. You will lose your ship. The way I perceive it, as long as we kill more than we lose, it's a win. And if we kill more ships, but lose more risk, but we kill more people in bigger ships, I think that's a win. I'll challenge anybody otherwise. Unless you're in a critical ship, obviously, like a Dicta or Boosh or something like that. Just say a simple -1 DPS is all that's needed. You can even say it on comms in fleet. Just say -1 Raptor, you know, or -1 whatever. It's really, really important, because taking up comms space, it will just mean that comms will go to shit and people will die. And it goes without saying, support new players. It's fairly self-evident. Obviously, EVE very, very firmly believe this. EVE in itself is reliant on people playing the game. If you support new players, they will become older players, and they make the game more vibrant. If you see a newer player ask a question in fleet, try and just help them out, open a conversation with them. If they're struggling with something, just open a convo and say, because chances are you will know the answer and you will be able to help them. The FC is not necessarily going to be in a position to help every individual player that has a question, because they've got 101 other things that need to be doing. So setting up a newer player, setting them up on comms, just step up and help them out, whatever it might be. You know, how to get to Thera, how to get to Pochven, how to get a clone, or how to set a clone, or how to get to Cheetah, whatever it might be. Support them as they develop, and they will become a better team member, and they're a better team member. You will also engage with them, and you will also increase that experience for them. If you fail to support them, all it's going to do is create churn in characters. They're not going to come back. They'll say, "Oh, well, I went onto that FUN.inc fleet and I couldn't get on comms because I didn't read the 3 messages that I saw." Or whatever. I wasn't in the correct X-Up channel despite receiving those 3 messages, and they're not necessarily going to be able to, get into game, get into fleet, and so on and so forth. So that thrust of it is, at the end of the day, we've all been there. We all know how to get out there. So let's just help them. And don't backseat drive. No one likes the backseat driver. It's really important. I've had backseat drivers. For the most part, they're fairly easy to get rid of. It's incredibly frustrating though, because it gives mixed messages to the fleet. It also erodes the confidence in the FC, and if you erode the confidence, they're not with FC. If you want a backseat drive, set up your own fleet. I'm quite happy to get people up in the calendar, so on and so forth, if they want to run fleets. Just what the FC says is generally final, unless they die beforehand, in which case somebody else will have to take over. Be on time. It's fairly obvious. Warm up of a fleet is the foundation of the entire operation. If you show up late or miss the departure, NPSI fleets rely on tight coordination. So arrive on time. It allows for fleet balancing of EWAR. It allows for getting the correct volume of logi, the correct number of skirmishers, the correct number of interdictors. If you show up late, it will have a trickle-down impact, because if you show up late, we might already have logi sorted, which means that you can't fly logi, which means your ship isn't ready because you have to buy another ship, and then the support ship you haven't got a fit for. If you haven't got a fit for it, you have to ask on comms, and the person in comms doesn't necessarily know the correct fit, and it has a trickle down impact for everybody. And again, it's another added weight on the mind of the FC that's going to impact. So you're more likely to be able to step up to take a role if you turn up on time, or better still, like 2 minutes early. I'll be straight with you. I log on at the time of the fleet. I know that it will take me 5 minutes to get people into fleet, and we generally start doing watch lists about 37 past the hour, and we're generally done by 10 to. It generally takes 15 minutes, give or take. Depending on numbers, obviously. But show up slightly early or just on time, and you'll be golden. Added value. I'm not going to go into added value. It's fairly obvious. Hopefully from the previous set of slides. Now this could be in the form of utility, like spare dicta bubbles. It could be in terms of bringing a combat prober. It could be in terms of bringing spare modules or cap boosters, so on and so forth. These are social fleets at best, and the more that you give, the more you get back. So if you provide that added value, you'll get more back. It's fairly obvious. You'll get more back in terms of fun, in terms of the kills, in terms of the connection with people. So yeah, I think that's fairly clear. Added value in terms of physical attributes on in game and or just being there. So I don't know whether people noticed. They probably didn't. The top 20 tips, I kind of got a bit carried away. There's actually 30 of them. So that's pretty much it for that section. That's pretty much it. What I have done is I've got a little top 30 tips to supercharge your NPSI experience. Got a little table there. I'll chuck that up on into the chat afterwards. And yeah, based on 23 tips. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm happy to take questions. This is really like my last slide. You're in a perfect position to get me up to like 50 tips on that list. Let's go and try and get 50 tips. If you do go to some roams and you think, hang on a sec, Keactes didn't say I should do this or didn't do this, but this is a really good idea, just DM me. I might include it. And like I said, there might be cookies involved. And if you do come to FanFest or anything like that, I might be like an actual cookie if you're there. If not, I might send you a metaphorical cookie. So that is it from me. Happy to take questions on either or all three parts. So if you've got questions, just ask away in Discord. Let me scroll back a bit and see. I think there's other comments that have taken place. I think they're just general comments, not anything as same as the dog person. People didn't like that pod dying. Yeah, Podex is going to shoot pod after 3 times shooting fleet. Yeah. Yeah, fun and violence per hour is greater than this per hour, correct? So, Sugar Fiends, you said, what guides should I know before I join a fleet? What do you mean, what guides? Just generally, what guides? I'll tell you what, let me link some then. Try and find it. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I've done a newbie space program. Find it. Find the playlist. Okay, so I've just linked that. That's a playlist of it's basically a selection of guides about how to get into NPSI. So it's called the FUN.inc guides. There's stuff on what is NPSI, what is NPSI.rocks, how to X up for a fleet invite, basic roles, what is a fleet commander, what is a skirmisher, what is a fleet interdictor, what is logi, what are booshes, what are critical roles. You wanted an undocked checklist? Here's one. Thera, what is Thera? Pochven, why docking and G are so important, how to be an awesome fleet member, common NPSI mistakes, and 10 things I wish I knew before joining my first NPSI fleet. There's loads in there. Go and take a look at those. There's also, let me just find these. Just one sec. They're all link. And there's also playlist here of, I believe, probably about 20 videos that I'll link. So there's also that's the FUN.inc, EWAR's new UV Space program. That's basically a listing or a short abridged version of all of the classes that we've done, kind of like bite-sized classes that we've done. We actually were due to start those up. It's like a rolling program, different themed every month. So month 1 is like skirmishing, month 2 is like interdictors, month 3 is like Booshers, Logi, and so on and so forth. It takes place over about, I think it's about 18 weeks, something like that, 16 weeks, I think it is, maybe. And it runs every 2 weeks. We have a normal roam and basic class, and then we have a specialized roam, then a normal roam, a specialized roam every 2 weeks. We'll be kicking that off probably in the new year at some point. And yeah, and we'll be taking it from there. We've run, I think that'll be our 3rd session or 3rd season of those. It takes quite a lot of organisation, so hence we can't run them that regularly. I don't want people to burn out that run in these. It's like I've sort of said, I don't want people to stop playing the game that they like playing because they've burnt out because they're playing the game, if that makes sense. So yeah, does that answer that? Does that help? Okay, so Sugar Fiends, I'm new to the game and I don't know the combat good. Just see, I don't know how to follow through. Okay, so it sounds like Sugar Fiend, you're wanting to learn how to PvP. That's the contrast to it, I think. There are lots of guides on YouTube. It depends what aspect of it you're wanting to get into. If you're wanting to understand different PvP mechanics, there's loads of different guides online. I know, obviously, EWAR has got different guides. Yeah, I was going to say there's different intro to fleets there. Oh, you've got the recording up on that already. Nice. Yeah, have a read of that. That will help you introduce about understanding about fleets and so on and so forth, different fleet mechanics. And yeah, I think that's probably the best thing. Have a look at that. If you've got more sort of niche or specific questions, just ask. There's always somebody that will know, and if they don't know, or if people don't know, you probably don't need to know. maybe not. Missed any? Yes, it is Protogus. It is very creepy. That is my avatar in Unreal Engine, kind of animated. So yeah, and as Protogus actually said, NPSI Discord channels, there's loads out there. Ours on FUN.inc is not as active, but on others there is more activity, like on Spectrefully, Bombers Bar. There's some people that are always willing to help. You will get. It depends. Sometimes people do answer. Sometimes you will get some biddy being sarcastic or so on and so forth. You're always going to get that though. You get that in life. So just park it, move on. Somebody will help, guarantee. Great thing about Eve is that people love talking about Eve and or helping people to understand Eve from their perspective or their field, their niche or whatnot. So. Orion, it's a good question. PvP is for fun. Yes, that's the name of the game for me. It will cost you more than you make, undoubtedly. I'm in a kind of odd, it's a bit of an odd position to be in because when Agony Unleashed wrapped up, the corp I was in prior to setting up FUN.inc, we had significant assets, but not insignificant people. We didn't have a lot of people left in corp. There was a group of about half a dozen, and we'd gone from a quite large corp into not many people. So the assets and so on and so forth were just basically divided up between us. So not space rich or anything like that. But what I've tried to do is spread that wealth between providing SRP, providing giveaways, that sort of stuff, and creating a bit of a community sort of thing. It's that's it really. What I would say is there are groups out there where you can do incursions, you can do beginner incursions and so on and so forth, and make decent money out of them. And yeah, so there is a way. You will not get rich from PvPing. I will tell you that for free. You've got a lot of things for free at me today, by the way. Do you see what I mean? It's not. Don't think I'm going to go into PvP and make loads of money. It doesn't happen. You will. It's tough out there. You will lose more ships at the start than you will ever believe possible. Just remember back to what I said. If I go back to the back to the graph I did right at the start, or whatever it was. Yeah, that one. Oh, it totally disconnected there. Not sure what happened, but it disconnected either way. But when you go back to that, if I can find it. Yeah, back to that. Look at the ships I was losing at the start. 2012, I lost half the amount of ships I had destroyed. And it kind of, it's pretty much, actually, to be fair, in the last sort of, since 2019, it's probably sort of been around about, I don't know, 150, something like that, 100 a year maybe. But, when you're flying small cheap ships, they are exactly that, small and cheap. So to be fair, if you're in a position where you can replace them relatively quickly, as long as you actually kill more ships than you destroy, than you lose, you're in a position where it's going to be better. But yeah, your Merlin fleet, that's a perfect perfect fleet to get to. In fact, I think there was one at 1800. I should probably shut up, and then that way you can all go and actually do some PvP. If that is tonight or not. Yeah, not sure. But let me have a look. Do you have a specific location for PR? Is it the best place that we mainly live? Well, I couldn't answer that question. FCDC, what do? I don't know. Just throw words at him, something like that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Unless anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to help out. My DMs are generally open. If you're going to DM me like really like totally niche questions, what would I do in this situation? I'm probably going to just get confused. But like, all joking aside, if you want to just DM me, happy to answer DMs. If you want to add me in any Discord, get our Discord, asking questions, you're more than welcome to do so. Likewise, on here. And I kind of alluded to this in the presentation at the start. I've run fleets a couple of times a week, so Thursdays, Saturdays. They are new player friendly. I do move really quickly. And I think you will probably get a good experience of what NPSI is about. Some of the different like tactics, strategies, so on and so forth. So if you want to come on, please do so. Like I sort of said, they're all NPSI roams. So I'm happy to help out. If you've got any sort of specific questions, just DM me. I'm happy to answer. And that's it. Unless anybody's got any questions. Next week for me is actually tomorrow. I think it is tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, it is tomorrow. God, if only there was a calendar that had it on. Watch, thanks all for sticking around. I know obviously it's like three presentations back to back. So you're very brave for sticking around for that amount of time. You all deserve a good good pat on the back. Well, thank you very much. Cheers all. Thank you very much for coming on, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hope you see in a fleet. Yeah, cool. Yeah.